Why do we fall, sir? So that we can learn to pick ourselves up.
Just give it up on me.
Never.
Where were the other drugs going?
Hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
Braden Herrington here with Davie Portman for UpNXT, postwrestling.com, Apple Podcast, Spotify, whatever podcast app you found us on. And Davie, we are where it all begins again.
Bum, bum.
Where are the other drugs going?
Yes, we're back to the beginning.
Where
of
it all
this Batman
begins.
adventure. Yeah, we've been doing all these Batman reviews, going to Gotham City. I believe we've done how many have we done so far? We've done Batman Returns, Mask of Phantasm, Forever, Batman and Robin. So this is our 6th.
What about the 60s one?
Oh yeah, so this is the 7th one.
7th Batman review.
And it's taken 7 films to find out, how did Bruce become the Batman? Where did it all begin?
It's true. Over all these past movies, they didn't really... Like, we've seen the guy's poor parents die, 8 times, and we've only seen, 7 iterations of it. But no, it's funny. So, you've mentioned, we've done all these reviews. The 60s review is the only one we did before we started doing this. It was the real beginning. Because someone had picked it for Up Yours.
Rob McDonald, I think.
Yeah, so we watched that and did that on the Patreon. But all the other ones are here in our back catalog of all the post shows that we've done, including all the Tim Burton ones. And then, even an animated one, which really kind of shows the origin of Batman.
To put it into perspective, Mask of Phantasm currently is our highest rated Batman film.
Okay.
It beat the Burton films, definitely beat the Schumacher films. That's currently our highest rated Batman film.
Yeah, I mean, some people say tomatoes. Batman Schumacher is actually the greatest, and some people say it's not. But here we finally get to, I guess, our Batman. Obviously, when we were kids, we had 8 different Batmans. Because there's the cartoons, there's the reruns of Adam West, there's Val Kilmer, there's George Clooney, there's Michael Keaton. So, as kids, we had the toys for that era.
For those, yeah.
But then I say we kind of grew up as, young adults, teenagers.
This is our teen Batman.
Yeah, this is our teen throb Batman.
Yes.
Maybe not.
I do find it funny how I kind of feel... I never questioned watching those early Batman films, the origin story. They were just... Origin stories almost seemed unimportant. Sure, you'd have a little flashback of Thomas and Martha dying and pearls falling on the
Always
floor.
the pearls.
Always the pearls. But I remember as a kid, I'd watch the TV series, I'd watch the Burton films, the Schumacher films. You just wanted to see Batman. You don't really care about Bruce. You don't really care about how he became this thing.
Yeah.
And I feel it wasn't really until maybe Spider-Man, when we saw the origin story of Spider-Man, Peter Parker, when suddenly from that point onwards, every superhero needed an origin film. And you think you've then got the whole MCU and you see the origin story of each character. And it's crazy to me that it took this long to do a proper origin story. And part of me wonders if it's they don't perceive it as Hollywood as marketable, the whole kind of going to Asia to train in ninja combat and all that, whether they just think, I don't know, we know Hollywood whitewashes a lot, right?
For sure.
There's part of me that wonders if they think, oh, that sounds a bit serious or boring maybe, or we won't, the Hollywood audience won't take to that, perhaps, rather than he got bit by a radioactive bat and then is superhero, you know?
Which is strange, because we usually don't watch movies and reviews and stuff together. Sometimes we do, depending on. So we were watching a big chunk of this the other night, and you were saying it's totally trying to make James Bond Batman 100%. James Bond. It's totally trying to make Batman James Bond, which is funny because clearly people who made Casino Royale watched this movie.
Yeah, so Casino Royale comes out the next year.
Yeah.
And yeah, I believe Barbara Broccoli's gone on record as saying like she was inspired by this.
Yeah.
And Christopher Nolan's never hidden the fact that he's wanted to make a Bond film.
Right, got you.
And the characters that, like Lucius Fox, if we have seen him in any of the other films, not enough to be like remembered. And I'd say the same about Jim Gordon as well. Like we've seen him in all the films, but he's talked to Batman a little bit by the light. Whereas here, the whole like Lucius Fox scene is, oh, this is Nolan making his Q scene, Q showing the gadgets. Right. And you feel that with all the supporting cast. Like Gordon is almost, I mean, I guess Alfred would be... Would Gordon be M and Alfred would be Moneypenny?
Yeah, Gordon would be M because like Batman's...
I think Alfred, I guess, would be Moneypenny because is always looking out, like not the like we'll occasionally fuck sort of thing, but always I'm looking out for you even when you're at your worst and you fuck up. I've got your back, and I feel that Moneypenny's kind of that character.
It's also because like I always say Batman is like the American James Bond. It's the equivalent because like they've gone through, we just mentioned, like generations of these movies being made, and same with James Bond, like going way back. So it's like it's like a character, and obviously it sticks maybe with more people, some people a bit more because it's like has that superhero comic book thing, and this definitely goes to like the detective comics. Like there's so many inspirations from so many of the past comic books that are used into these stories that like as a kid you might go like I just want to see the freak of the week and the crazy villains and the Scarecrow is in it and but more so when you watch it older you're like they're trying to make this try to be as real as possible because Batman is something that's so ridiculous. It's a guy dressed as a bat, but in some of the old comic books he never was trying to be like that, like Spider-Man or X-Men or the stuff with magic essentially, right? He's just a guy who's like a vigilante. So they go in that avenue, and I think it makes for like a way more interesting character than like some of the movies that we've watched prior, like Batman Forever. What the fuck is the premise of that movie?
Oh, yeah.
Visually, it's amazing, but it doesn't make sense.
It's just Tommy Lee Jones laughing,
trying to outlaugh Jim Carrey. That's the plot of that movie. So it's just like, here, because that was like, how do we make an advertisement for toys? Here, it's like completely opposite. It's like we're actually just making a good movie.
I think it's actually quite impressive for a big studio movie. Still, like around this time, they clearly gave a lot of free rein to Christopher Nolan.
Yeah,
and we always hear about studio interference. And watching this film, I get the impression Christopher Nolan's like, fuck off. I'm making my film. And perhaps, I know I've probably said this on a show before, I know David Fincher credits Aliens 3 to him being a better director because he says it's such a disaster of a film, in his opinion.
Yeah.
He's so embarrassed by it, and it's because there was so much interference that since then, any studio interference, he's like, no. And there were those leaked emails, weren't there, a few years ago, where Fincher walked away from, was it Cleopatra with Angelina Jolie, maybe? Because, God. You know, do you remember the Sony leaks?
Yeah.
And Fincher walks in this email because they were trying to interfere, and he's like, no, I'm making my movie how I want to do it. You hire me to make my movie.
Yeah.
And part of me wonders if Batman and Robin wasn't the disaster it was, would we have had this film? Because I get the feeling like Nolan's making this film, studio's going, yeah, but how about we do this and do that? And he goes, no, you fucked up the last one.
Right.
Let me make this and prove myself, and if it works, it works.
Well, I think it worked.
And it worked.
Definitely. I'd say this one is kind of the dark horse in your Batman movies, because you think back, you're like, oh, it's the one that like kind of, it's his introduction. It's Batman Begins, but it's overshadowed by like the Dark Knight, obviously. It's the only one in the whole trilogy that doesn't have the Dark Knight in the name as well. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, I wonder in hindsight, because like they never really, obviously there's the kind of stinger at the end of the film that sets up the next one.
Yeah.
But Nolan said he never kind of intended to do a trilogy. It just sort of happened.
Oh, okay.
I wonder in hindsight, would this be the Dark Knight? And you go maybe Dark Knight Dark Knight Returns, Dark Knight Rises, maybe, to rename
true.
it to actually be the Dark Knight trilogy.
I mean, they had a different name to begin with. I think Christopher Nolan wanted to call it something completely different. The Intimidation Game was the running name, the working title.
That's not a good name.
No, it doesn't it doesn't have Batman in it, so you need to have Batman in it to sell the thing. Which brings us to another thing. 2005 is when this came out, so clearly I was busy watching all the wrestling this year. But this movie came out in June 2005, so it's turning something this June.
Turning 16.
Yeah. And I remember, even as big as a Batman fan I was, when it came to the weekend this movie came out, Friday night, me and the boys, we went to see War of the Worlds instead. And I think everyone else did too.
I didn't see this in theaters.
Yeah, I didn't see this movie. This was like the only one of this era. I didn't see this in theaters. I slept on it because maybe, just maybe, Batman and Robin ingrained in all of our heads that we were done with this shit. We'll wait to get the reviews and then watch it. Even as I don't know how old I would be in 2005, but even as a kid, I was like, I'd rather go see War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise than see Katie Holmes.
I went to see War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
And in the UK, I remember seeing posters for Batman Begins, but I don't remember there being much hype at all. At least for me, as like a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
Well, I don't remember hype for this film. I don't remember seeing trailers. It seemed kind of just a quiet release. Oh, we're releasing a Batman film. And
that's how I feel.
I certainly didn't see it in the theaters, and I watched it on DVD before The Dark Knight comes out. But I know so many people that almost think Dark Knight's the first film. Like they haven't seen Batman Begins.
Yeah.
But it was just so much with, I mean, obviously a lot of unfortunate publicity with Heath Ledger's passing for Dark Knight, but that I think certainly helped it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know so many people that still to this day haven't seen this film and love The Dark Knight.
You can just watch The Dark Knight.
You can,
yeah. It's definitely something. I remember going to theaters with some friends, and some of them hadn't even watched Batman Begins at the time of watching Dark Knight. So, yeah.
And I think that's why I like Dark Knight Rises, because it makes you have to watch this film. It kind of brings it all together with the League of Shadows and stuff. And to make the third one make sense, you do have to go back.
Yeah,
and I remember when that was coming out, I was saying to people, like, you should really watch Batman Begins before seeing this one.
It's definitely like a whole restart, and for me, after watching this, eventually I got around to watching it, like, on DVD when it came out or whatever, and was like, oh, holy shit, this is amazing, and then would watch it and get hyped up for the Dark Knight. But, like I mentioned, I loved comic books as a kid, and this one totally goes against, like, everything else that had been done, and I'd say this is probably, again, like a kind of a dark horse in the whole Batman of all the movies. People kind of, you maybe forget about this one because The Dark Knight is so special. But this one's awesome. Like, this one is killer. And I feel like this movie is actually also a dark horse or low key, if you will, under the radar of, like you mentioned, like inspiring so many movies. Not even just comic book like stuff, not even just the origin story stuff, but like little things in this movie that I feel like it's overlooked that it inspired a lot of things.
I think sort of like Nolanism became a thing, which is, can we take something and make it dark? And it goes from like Man of Steel. It was like, let's take Superman and make it dark. And for me, where I think the Dark Knight trilogy works and the Daniel Craig Bond films work is it is dark, it is gritty, it is based in a reality, but you still do have the humour throughout. You do still have these odd one-liners and a bit of a wink to the camera at times that keeps it light. Whereas I think so many films just went, oh, we've got to make everything gloomy. And that's what I felt about Man of Steel. I didn't find there was much heart or humour in it at all. But then you've got shows like Riverdale, which are essentially doing kind of the Nolanism thing. It's like, let's take this kid's comic book Archie and try and make it a bit darker and a bit grittier. And everything, I'd say even till today, 16 years later, everyone is still Nolanizing
100%
properties.
They're like, how do we make it darker and more gritty, more real? How do you make things like seem not so funny as things used to be before? It's definitely like inspired. And Then he went on to, like, everyone after watching this and Dark Knight, like, he became like a staple. Like, oh, what's the next Nolan movie? Like, to this day, like Tenet, right? It's like, what's the next Nolan movie that's coming out? Because after this movie, it's like he didn't miss. He just continued to knock him out. And that's awesome, because I love a lot of his other movies, and you see a lot of the same actors in a lot of his other movies since this movie. Because clearly he's like, I did pretty good with this one. I'm just going to, keep my friends. But someone like Christian Bale, who is the Batman in this movie, like, as like a kid who was probably like, I was probably like 13, 14, I was like, I didn't know who this guy was. And then now as an adult, I've watched him in so many other movies where I'm like, holy shit, like, you're one of the GOATs. And Batman
He's
aside,
an incredible actor, yeah.
Like, Batman aside, this guy is fantastic. So I couldn't imagine them putting in some of the other names, because we played this in some former Batman games.
Oh, yeah.
Let's look up who
could have been Batman.
Who would have been Batman. So the rumor goes that Christian Bale was obsessed with certain graphic novels of Batman. And would tell his friends and his agent that, like, if they ever try to talk, if you hear anything about a Batman movie, I want to be involved in the talks, because I think they could do this. And then when him and Nolan were linking up for other things, they talked, and they go, I think we could make this a thing. However, like, studios were like, well, we got to see other actors. So Joshua Jackson.
Okay. From Dawson's Creek and Fringe and stuff.
Mighty Ducks. The guy who ends up in this movie, Cillian Murphy. Cillian Murphy. Henry Cavill, who goes on to fucking play Superman.
Yeah.
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Okay.
And then a few I'm not too familiar
I can see, maybe not. Joshua Jackson's a good actor. Like, I've seen him be good in serious stuff, but I can see the others for sure.
I don't know Hugh Dancy or Billy Crudup.
Oh, Hugh Dancy is Pirates of the Caribbean, I believe. He's the guy who Keira Knightley is with before she goes with Orlando Bloom.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, like another like handsome British
and then
guy.
Ian Bailey, who I also am not familiar with. So there's some list of people that were like in the running for this particular movie, which is pretty interesting. But I think they went with the right guy.
Yeah.
Considering Christian Bale, he's someone now, as someone who's watched these Batman movies, I'm like, yeah, you're fucking amazing as Batman. And then you kind of maybe don't watch some of his other stuff, but then when you do, you're like, oh, you're just really good at, like, I could give two shits about race car driving, but I watched the movie with him and Matt Damon,
Ford v Ferrari.
And I'm like, this is fucking amazing. Yeah, same with one of my favorites is, before this, he did American Psycho.
Oh, yeah.
Like, ridiculous fucking movie, but holy shit, like, he's amazing.
So I was wrong with Hugh Dancy. He's the lead in Hannibal. He plays Will Graham. He's good, actually. He's got a real intensity about him, which would work with this. But yeah, another name who auditioned for the role.
Yeah.
And got pretty far, and then both the actor and Nolan felt he wasn't right for this role and might be better for something else. Someone called Heath Ledger.
Damn.
So obviously that got Heath Ledger on the radar, and he was like, you know what, I might have something for you in a couple of years. But yeah, Christian Bale, an incredible actor. And as we were watching this yesterday, I kind of blew your mind a bit, because I said, Christian Bale in this film is my age. He's 31. Actually, probably filming it, he's younger than me. Now, I've been eating my steaks and hitting my weights, but I'm not quite...
Well, he had to do the 6 months, right?
Yeah, so the story is, and I think this is in one of the DVD extras, he wanted the role, and he'd just done, I believe it's The Machinist,
where
he
tiny.
Lost so much weight. And, like, Nolan's someone who can kind of, like, be like, oh, you're a good actor, and can see beyond that. I mean, fuck, look at Heath Ledger, who'd have thought him for the Joker.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, Nolan's great at, like, seeing kind of potential of what, like, an actor can bring. Producers and casting directors have little imagination a lot of the time, so they want you to walk in and be the person. So scrawny Christian Bale comes in, and they're like, no.
Fuck.
So tell him to come back, and, like, they're like, you need to eat, like, you need to put on weight. He comes back, and he's more like American Hustle Christian Bale, just like a blob,
bigger,
like fat. And they're like, yo, we asked for Batman, not Fat Man.
Yeah.
So he's like, give me another month. And then comes back just jacked
he's pretty
as
big.
fuck. Yeah,
he's pretty big. Like
and he gets
pretty big.
bigger in the next ones, I think.
But this is another element. I explained it in some of our past reviews. It's particularly the Michael Keaton one, right? Like, you look at Christian Bale, I'd say more so maybe in the next... No, fuck all three of these movies. He's, like, literally training as a fucking ninja in this movie. Like, he's jacked. He's doing the fight scenes. Christian Bale did these fight scenes. And you look at fucking Michael Keaton... And you go, no, dude, I could kick your ass.
Yeah.
I could beat you up. Val Kilmer might
The
put
only
up
way
a fight.
you beat me is I'd be like, oh man, you're nice. I don't want to hurt you, you know?
Like, there's no... George Clooney might put up a fight. That could be a shocker there.
Again, I think he'd just charm his way out of a fight. George
Val
Clooney.
Kilmer might be the wild card. Adam West, completely rest in peace. But Adam West, no, sorry, not fighting me. Michael Keaton, no. Who am I missing? Someone? I don't. That's it.
Affleck could fuck you up.
Affleck would fuck me up, and I would not. I would, as a person, as a human being, as a man, would respectfully decline to fight Ben Affleck and George. To be honest,
What about our bats? I think he could. I think he's got a nasty
Robert
side to him.
Pattinson?
Yeah,
if you ask me when like it was Twilight days, like
absolutely not.
Yeah.
Now I think maybe.
Yeah, I still haven't seen the movie though, so we gotta
true.
wait to see it.
That's
but
the other thing as well. Christian Bale is younger than Robert Pattinson is playing Batman
now.
Yeah,
That's crazy
Which
because
is
he looks like he would kill you. So
he's
it's
looked like 38 for like all his life. I feel.
he's in like Christian Bale is in so many. I just have his like movie. I watched the first time 310 to Yuma, which is awesome as well. It's a remake, but he's American Hustle is lit as well, and he's making some new movies. Like I feel like I want to watch all the ones I haven't seen.
Yeah, I feel he's an actor. Like we mentioned about Christopher Nolan. If Nolan's putting out a film, I'm going to go and see it.
Oh,
I
also,
feel Christian Bale is that kind of actor as well. I think he picks interesting projects, and if he's in a film, I'm probably going to see it. And
it's like Leo.
It.
It's like if Leo's
Yeah.
in a movie, it's like, well, it's probably gonna be good.
Yeah.
Like realistically. But also, Christian Bale lent a voice in 1995 for a movie. He played Thomas in Pocahontas.
Oh,
There you go. That's Mel Gibson, who plays John White. Was it John Snow?
John Smith.
Yeah, John Smith.
John
That's
Smith.
the whitest
Most
guy.
generic.
Yeah, his
name.
buddy is Thomas, played by
Okay.
Christian Bale. Yeah. So this movie, like you mentioned, kind of like went under the radar for some people because they're like, it's Batman, and it also had. I mentioned going to see War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise, but then Katie Holmes, his squeeze at the time, was in this movie, so it was like battle of the couple here, and I'd say this movie still went on to do like amazing, but overall
it did well, but like. I've got the like stats here, and it ranked top in its opening weekend, making 48 million. Which the quote here is, "It was strong but unimpressive by today's instantaneous blockbuster standards." So it did kind of well for the time, but it was no world beater of a film.
It also like gained traction when they realized there was more of these movies coming, so everyone would go buy the DVDs or rent them.
Oh yeah, and
like
there's
that,
been so many times this has been like. Replayed in theaters when the new one's coming out, or doing a Nolan retrospective and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's definitely in those lists. But totally a different change from some of the last movies that we've done. And I guess we need to begin. Batman.
Let's begin. Just the opening right away I think is really cool, with all the black bats flying around, and it's this sort of gold. I mentioned on the Dawn of the Dead review, it's like early 2000s, so let's put filters on everything. And this is kind of the gold sepia hue throughout this whole film. But all the bats forming the bat logo, I think it looks really cool. But we see a young Bruce at Wayne Manor playing with Rachel Dawes, and Bruce falls down a well. Little Jimmy fell down the well, and the well just gets filled up with bats, and Bruce is kind of freaking out and wakes up from this nightmare in this prison in a kind of undisclosed location somewhere in Asia. I believe at one point someone's speaking Mandarin, so possibly China, but it never specifies where Bruce is. But he's just in this prison, and he's confronted by this big thug who calls himself the Devil. And Bruce says, "You know what I call you? practice and beats the fuck out of this guy, beats the fuck out of all these inmates, and there's this all-out brawl, and Bruce is thrown into solitary confinement, as the guards say, not to protect you, but to protect everyone else.
Because he just fucks up everyone.
So we see, little pussy Bruce as a kid. I don't know how else to put it, but yeah. And clearly the guy has tried to kind of conquer that, going into adulthood, because he's a mean motherfucker now.
Yeah, I mean, here he is challenging the scariest guy in line, and then takes out like a bunch of dudes.
6 guys, I think.
And he's like beats them all up, breaking their legs and stuff. Already very impressive. I wrote young Bruce is a little bitch.
Yeah.
So I mean, like,
we're on the same page.
And I read it a few times, but yeah, it's like the evolution. It cuts in the like kind of early parts of this movie. It cuts between like the clips of him younger.
A lot of flashbacks.
Yeah.
So we meet Ducard, played by Liam Neeson, all suited up with this kind of cool-looking, intimidating goatee.
Yes, Liam Neeson shows up to his prison and he says, hey, Bruce, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want.
But I will find you and I will help you.
Become Batman.
Yes. So Ducard says he speaks on behalf of Ra's al Ghul from the League of Shadows, and he's kind of had his ear to the ground and found out about Bruce Wayne is kind of in prison here, and he wants Bruce to help the League of Shadows and Ra's al Ghul fight evil. There's this poison in the world.
Injustice.
And tells him that with his training, he can become something else entirely, a legend. And says, if you're interested, we're going to release you from this prison. You need to find this rare blue flower and climb to the top of the mountain where you will find what you're looking for. Already, like, the opening of this film is just so different from any Batman I've ever seen. Like, you're now seeing Bruce, just a bearded, like, scruffy-looking Bruce Wayne, somewhere in Asia, climbing this sort of these snow-capped mountains, and you're like, this isn't the Batman I'm used to. Where's the neon? Where's Gotham?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on?
It's already like a completely different monster of its own, where it's like him traveling. It's not Batman yet. It's totally giving us the story. We mentioned the Mask of the Phantasm with the flashbacks. It's kind of similar to that.
Yes.
Cutting back and forth, different time frames. But like the clips of him going up the mountain was like, I remember when the trailer came out for this, I guess you were like, oh, like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah.
What is this, how he trains and stuff? And it's quite interesting. But I will say, like, I don't want to, I don't read ahead and go too far into stuff, but spoilers, obviously, because we're talking about this fucking movie that came out a long time ago. As a Batman, like, nerd, comic book, you knew right away who Liam Neeson's playing.
Oh, right, yeah.
That's, you told about the goatee and the way he's presented here. It's like, yeah, I knew who this guy was right away.
I would say, I reckon a large portion of the audience wouldn't have known who he is. Because Ra's al Ghul isn't, like, if you're a Batman fan, sure, you know who he is. But he's not very mainstream.
Right.
We've never seen him in any of the movies before.
Yeah.
Sure, he'd have been in the cartoons if you're a fan of that. But, like, Ra's al Ghul isn't a character you're going to dress up for at Halloween. You know, like,
maybe his daughter, though.
He's not as mainstream as a load of the other characters. So I do think if you know who Ra's al Ghul is, you're looking at this guy and you go, Ducard, fuck off.
Yeah,
you're not him.
yeah.
I reckon a large percentage wouldn't have had a clue.
For sure.
And might have seen him as an ally, perhaps, to start with.
Definitely.
So they go to this... Bruce finds the flower, climbs the mountain, and finds this kind of temple on top of the mountain where he meets Ra's al Ghul, this bald, intimidating, scary Asian man, again with this kind of flowing goatee, and they're saying to kind of be able to train and become one of us. To be able to manipulate the fear in others, you must first master your own. And Ducard's like, right, let's fight, let's start your training. And Bruce is like, yo, hang on, I've just climbed a mountain, I'm pretty tired. And Ducard just starts beating him up, and he's like, yeah,
Doesn't wait.
fear, death doesn't wait. So we have Bruce start to like fight back, but eventually like Ducard outpowers him and says, you are afraid, but not of me. What is it you fear? And we go into this other flashback of Bruce being saved, rescued from the well.
This is like flashbacks on flashbacks.
Yeah.
Like, we heard you like flashbacks, so we put a flashback in your flashback. This is definitely when you see little bitch Bruce.
Little bitch Bruce.
Yeah.
Where Bruce, fell down this well because he was actually trying to find this arrowhead that
Rachel.
that he wanted for Rachel. His dad, Thomas Wayne, says, we learn to fall so we can pick ourselves up. Quote that's kind of recurring throughout all these films. And yeah, Thomas is just comforting his son. They're going to go to the opera that night, and Thomas has bought this pearl necklace he's going to give his mum. And he's like, son, do you think mum would like this? Bruce is like, yeah, sure, whatever, I'm scared of bats.
He's like, hey, sorry, you fell down a well near our house and you saw a lot of bats and you're kind of freaked out? Huh. You want to go to this opera that features a lot of bats?
Yeah. So they go to the opera. We all know this scene.
What? No, I never heard.
We all know this scene. They're at the opera, and Bruce gets, as you mentioned, freaked out by these dancers kind of dressed as bats. And they're doing sort of the ribbon thing, so they're kind of moving like bats, and, like, hanging upside down and stuff. So this is something that's kind of new in this film. It's Bruce's fear here that makes him leave. He's getting freaked out. He's like, I gotta go. So they leave early, where they get approached by a man with a gun who's trying to mug them, to rob them, and Thomas is being like, yeah, just stay calm, handing everything over. But then the guy turns and points the gun at Martha to get like the necklace. He wants the jewelry as well. And when he moves to put it in front of Martha, Thomas like jumps in front to block, which kind of freaks out the guy, and the gun goes off. Thomas gets shot, and in a reaction to that, the guy shoots Martha as well, and young Bruce is left there watching his parents die. The pearls go everywhere. So rip.
Yeah, rip the Waynes.
Yeah.
We've seen this a few times now. We've mentioned the Tim Burton, Michael Keaton, where he like has flashbacks briefly leaving, and the story there is it's the Joker that actually shoots his parents
that's right.
for no reason, whatever. But here it's like way more in depth, and obviously this is a little kid. He's gonna feel like it's his fault because he wanted to leave early here. But I like this whole sequence with the retelling of the story. Obviously, like as Batman fans, we've seen it a million times. We're like so beat to death of it now, of origin stuff. But this is like, so it shows you, right, like front to back of what happens.
Yeah, and it does it pretty quickly, because you know it already. But I think the main thing with this in this film is to establish the relationship with Gordon and Alfred.
Sure.
Because we have a young Jim Gordon who's the kind of policeman on the scene.
He's just a cop.
He's just a cop at this point. And he's comforting Bruce and saying it's all going to be okay. And I think that is almost... We know his parents die. Everyone knows. Even people that don't know Batman knows Batman's parents died.
My parents are dead!
It's really to establish these relationships, which are going to be so important throughout these films. And Alfred, at the funeral...
we meet
Bruce,
Alfred here. I mean, it's Michael Caine.
Caine.
Is it Sir Michael Caine?
Sir Michael Caine.
You gotta say it right.
Yeah. Who's... Bruce is thinking it's all his fault, and Alfred's comforting him.
He's like, Alfred, I gotta tell you the truth, this poor kid, poor little bitch Bruce. He's like, it was my fault. I wanted to leave. And he's like, no, it wasn't. Huh? And he almost wants to hit him. He's like, no, it was that guy's fault. And that guy chose to pull a gun on someone. It was his fault. It wasn't your fault. So don't ever think like that, you little bitch.
Don't ever think that, you little bitch. I do think young Bruce, like child actors, is always hard to find someone good.
Yeah, he was fine, actually. He was just a little bitch.
Yeah, I didn't get too much from him.
Like, it was fine.
It's, sure. I thought he was a little weak.
Well,
be
he's a
honest.
little bitch.
Not just being a little bitch. I just mean acting wise.
Yeah.
I didn't particularly get that he was too sad
They
about
should
his
have
parents dying
in
beyond
today's-
just the lines that were written for him.
In today's, they just CGI Christian Bale as a kid.
Yeah, probably. He'd be fantastic.
Yeah, it'd be
He'd be really good. So we go back to the mountains, and Ducard asks Bruce if he still feels guilty. And Bruce says that his anger outweighs his guilt. So Ducard's like, hey, how do you want to be a ninja? He basically says that we need to stop masking the guilt and confront the guilt and become what you fear. Because then you can turn that on your enemies. So we get the training montage. Unfortunately, without a great 80s soundtrack here.
We get Hans, though.
But we do get Hans Zimmer.
Right?
Yeah.
Hans the GOAT here.
He's so good.
If you've listened to us on this any of our podcasts, we've talked about how Dave is obsessed with Hans. And we listened to you still have the Blu-ray.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it on later.
We watch that occasionally, and I recommend anyone looking up Hans Zimmer on YouTube, because a lot of these clips are like on there. And Batman: The Dark Knight trilogy, he does the music for it.
Yeah.
And we've mentioned in the past movies Danny Elfman, absolute legend with the stuff he's done. But here comes Hans Zimmer, and he's like, all right, like, I got this. And something I didn't know until today, looking up trivia. The soundtrack, if you bought the soundtracks to all three of these movies, are like popular. I know a lot of music heads, classical music people that always go, wow, like the way he manages to, like, listening to him describe this too, by the way. I just watched a documentary I was talking to you about music producing in the Beatles and stuff. Hans shows up and he starts talking about this movie, and like it's more so actually the next one that he like goes into like some next meta thing. But in this movie, the soundtrack, the titles of the songs are named after bats.
Okay, cool.
So he's got all these little songs in this movie for the soundtrack, like Vespertilio, which is actually a Vesper bat, or Apetiscius, I'm fucking these up, aka House Bat. So like all the songs to tracks are bats.
Wow.
So Hans Zimmer, absolutely.
He's great. I think he's so important in these movies, and Nolan obviously respects him a lot because he uses him in most of his films. Didn't use him for Tenet. But listening to the concert, you can... The way he's talking about when they come back for The Dark Knight Rises, because both were pretty, to put it lightly, bummed out.
Yeah.
Because Heath died. And listening to him talk about conversation he had with Nolan where they're like, we got to finish the trilogy.
Yeah.
We got to do it. We got to... honor Heath with the next film.
Right.
You can see how much of a collaboration it is between these two artists, and it shows in these films, because I think the music is so important for every scene.
Yeah.
It just makes it adds to it so much.
The main score he has for Batman is pretty epic, and what he goes on to do in the next few movies are awesome, and I'm sure we'll talk about in those next reviews. But even in this, it's like awesome with the fight, the music, while over, like, Nolan does these great shots in all his movies, and like, yeah, the fight scene here is like. So apparently, it really was Liam Neeson and Christian Bale here who filmed the fight scenes completely. So they did their own stunts in these fights. But then Nolan, just in case, got doubles to do the fight scene exactly like they did, so he could do it. But he's like, I ended up using most of just Christian Bale. So apparently, Christian Bale has, again, trivia, because this movie's kind of old now. You can look up so many people compile interviews and stuff like that. Christian Bale apparently would be a fantastic wrestler, because Christian Bale says he's always good at remembering A, his lines, and B, fight sequences.
Right.
He says he had to remember 16 like complex fight scenes for this movie himself, and Nolan was like, "How do you know which way to turn?" It's like, when you watch like Shingo Osprey or whatever, it's like, how do they know when to duck at which particular set? Because if you don't duck there, you're eating that, or like you're getting punched. And apparently Christian Bale is like really good at remembering which goes where, and that's why he's a really good actor.
I wonder if he's got a dance background. Because,
I don't know, yeah.
Like, dance is something, like, if you've done it a bit, like, you remember, like, full routines so, like, easily. And I know when I was training at drama school and did my stage combat exam, you learn a routine, and we went in to do the exam, and it's like 4 sections unarmed, so like fist fighting, kicking, and headlocks and shit, and then 4 armed with a rapier and dagger.
Okay.
And like, so I think the whole thing, you do like a like a 15-minute scene, and it's like mixed with dialogue and stuff. We did it, and the examiners were like, yeah, that's great, you've passed, but if you want to get distinction, try and kill the other guy now, essentially. You know it. You know the routine. And there's learning something, and then there's learning something so you don't need to think about it. And I think that's what you're saying with Bale here. There's remembering, okay, this goes next, and then there's just letting your muscle memory take over. And that's when, like, just doing that rapier and dagger fight where you've got a guy flying at you with a sword and a dagger, but your body just knows it. And obviously the guy's, like, very good here. Well, does a lot.
Well, same with Liam Neeson. I mean, in 2005, he's still not no spring chicken, this Liam Neeson. And it's like, he still continues to go on and do Taken and all this shit.
Yeah, Taken is after
Taken
this,
hasn't
right?
come out yet, though. So, like, people know Liam Neeson, but they didn't know, like, this is his first, like, kind of action.
Yeah, before this, he's doing Love Actually and stuff like that, which he's very good at. But I think this might have been the one that started turning heads.
Maybe.
For,
they're like,
actually, you could be.
They're like, wait,
kind of scary.
You were a Jedi. You were a bad guy in Batman. You were all these things. But the shots on the ice are epic. Anytime, like, different foreign giant countries with big shots of, like, the zoom outs and they're still fighting and the music and, of course, like, it's ice, so they're like, oh, someone's got to fall in.
And knowing Nolan, these are all, like, practical, like, on location.
Right,
like, he doesn't do CGI. He doesn't do green screens too much.
Good.
So, yeah, we've got this fight montage, this training montage. Ducard is teaching him about theatricality as well, so showing him smoke bombs and stuff. And as the Batman fan, you go, I see where this is going.
He says theatrics can, like, help you, use mind games and tricks to
manipulate
manipulate your enemies.
And there's a bit where they're fighting on the ice, and Bruce gets Ducard to yield, and Ducard was like, yeah, you've got me, but always kind of check where you're standing.
Your surroundings,
and just taps the ice, sending Bale falling through. Apparently filming this scene, they heard the ice cracking as they're filming it. The next day, this had been completely melted.
Terrifying.
So, yeah, pretty scary stuff.
That's scary.
We get a flashback again to older Bruce Wayne, who is wanting to go to the hearing of Mr. Joe Chill.
So now it's cutting from him, like, warming up by a fire, and then it cuts, like, to before he even went away for his training.
So he's an adult here.
Yeah,
he's
just graduated, like, university or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, again, there's, like, layers of the flashbacks within, like, these flashbacks. There was a scene where he's warming up, and apparently Nolan interviews was like, it was my decision to be like, to say this about, like, rub your chest.
Right.
And he's like, I actually didn't look this up, and, like, I don't know if this is legit, so, like, I hope Cub Scouts and people watching this movie didn't go, to warm yourself up, just do this. Because he's like, I just used it for a line. He's like, I'm not an expert, I'm not a camp leader here, so I don't know if that actually would warm you up.
What, rubbing your chest?
I think so.
I guess it would warm your heart, maybe?
Yeah. Because Liam Neeson's character says,
I feel quite warm here.
Rub your chest, your arms will do it for you.
Okay.
Like, will warm up for you if you do that. So, I mean, maybe that is true.
Interesting.
But yeah, I read that.
So, Joe Chill, the murderer of Bruce's parents.
Yo, Joe.
Chill. Is going to have a hearing to see if he is going to be released. We see an older Rachel Dawes, played by Katie Holmes, who is trying to talk him out of going. She's like, Bruce, like, he's going to get off. He has connections with Carmine Falcone, not Chris Leone.
Falcone.
Carmine Falcone, who's like the mob boss of Gotham.
This is where it gets, like, again, more different than a Batman movie. So right away here, she's like, hey, I know the guy who killed your parents is in jail, but apparently in jail, his cellmate is this guy, and because he knows secrets, they're gonna, like, it's so, like, realistically like a crime movie.
Yeah.
It's not like some, like, well, the Riddler wants to destroy the world and throw riddles at people.
It's like proper mob crime.
This guy's in prison, and he's got information. So because of plea deals and all this shit, he's gonna sing, and then we'll let him out.
Yeah, and the mob has like their fingers on everything: judges, cops, all this.
I like how when he's still a kid, and they're like, one of the cops, not Gordon. It's like one of the kind of, he's a rough police leader, chief or whatever. He's like, hey.
Loeb?
He's like, hey, kid, don't worry, we got him. It's like, the kid doesn't give a shit if you caught the guy.
Oh, yeah.
He just wants his parents back.
Like, his parents had just died, and they're like,
Don't
hey,
worry.
Bruce, we got him!
We got him to this, like, 8-year-old kid who's like, what? My parents? You got them? They're alive? No, we got the guy who shot them. Oh, okay.
Great.
Like, when you're an adult, sure, but this kid just going through shock.
But, like, I feel you'd need a bit of time to process the death of your parents first before giving a shit about who you caught.
Yeah.
But we see Bruce basically is going to this hearing, and he's like armed himself with a gun. So it looks like if Chill gets freed, he's going to take him out. He's going to do the hit.
So Bruce Wayne, again, this is before he goes off to travel to become, like, this is still kind of young, 20-something Bruce, and he's got like a revolver loaded because he's like, I'm going to take matters into my own hand. Basically going to throw his whole life away to get what he feels is his justice.
Justice.
And it's pretty, they did a good job of making Bale look younger here than in the rest of the movie.
He actually looked a great older version of the kid.
Yeah,
I thought
exactly.
Here, which you look at like Batman Bruce, you're like, who, this guy? But they've got the hair
like the same
right,
clothes.
very like close shaven, so he looks fresh.
But he's got the gun loaded, and he's like waiting, and he was right because the guy gets to walk, so he's ready. He's loaded it up. He's got it in his like pocket. He's ready to pull the trigger, but then
someone else gets there first and takes out Joe Chill, and we learn that Falcone paid off the judge to let him free because Chill has too much information on the Falcone like mob.
So this guy dies. Yeah,
so he's done.
So Bruce just feels like, what the fuck? I don't get my vengeance. The guy gets killed. The guy dies, but like it wasn't me. So that would make you feel some type of way.
Yes,
that would make you feel a little fucked up.
Yes. So we have Rachel and Bruce having a little chat. Rachel's like, look, Falcone's making Gotham proper shite. And Bruce says, look, Rachel, here's my gun. I was going to kill him.
I was going to shoot him.
Now I can't do it, and I'm mad. So Rachel slaps him a few times and is like, your father would be ashamed of you, Bruce. So Wayne throws the gun away. Throws it in Gotham River.
The harbor.
And
burns his like IDs.
Yeah.
Burns his like wallet.
Goes to confront Falcone in a classic mobster Italian restaurant. I miss going to these when I go to New York.
This looked great.
It looked lovely. Falcone is like, you came here unarmed. I'm kind of offended by that. He goes, look, over there, you see that guy? He's a judge. That guy over there, he's a cop. I could pull out this gun right now, shoot you in the head, and I'd be fine. Like, I'm powerful.
He basically quotes almost verbatim of what Donald Trump would go on to say years later while running for president. Did say that. Just remember, he did say, I could go out and shoot someone and you'd still vote for me.
Yeah, and I think he's right. I think he was right. And then Falcone riles up Bruce by saying that it was his dad's fault that they both died, and he begged for mercy like a dog. So Bruce is kind of goes for him, but gets thrown out by all the thugs. And we see this homeless guy after Bruce's get thrown out and just goes, you should have tipped better. And this is one of the scenes where, I mean, even though it's very like dark, gritty, more based in a reality, there's humor throughout. So Bruce goes to this homeless guy, and he starts burning like his IDs and stuff in the trash can, and gives the guy a handful of bills, and goes, give me your coat. And he's then going to throw his coat away, and the homeless guy's like, yo, can I just have your
nice coat?
That's a nice coat. And Bruce is like, okay, but be careful, people are going to be after me and will ask you about that coat. You don't know anything. So Bruce runs out, and the homeless guy's there in this nice, probably like few $100 jacket, and is like, nice coat.
So basically, Bruce Wayne is Simba here because Mufasa dies.
True.
Scar makes it go as your fault.
Yeah.
So he goes, fuck this, I'm getting out
running
of here.
away.
And then he meets some animals, friends, and they're like, "Oh, what's wrong?" "Well, my dad died." "Huh? Have you just tried not caring?" So Bruce,
Yes.
"What's wrong?" "Ah, my life sucks." "Huh? Well, I'll
Just don't worry about it.
forget about it." Bruce is like, "Oh fuck! Like my dad died. The bad guy died. I can't even get revenge, justice. My friend slapped me. Everything sucks."
I now
running
want to
away.
see the version of The Lion King where Simba goes back to Pride Rock and it's been Pumbaa all along. Like, Pumbaa is the big bad, like, telling Scar what to do.
Fuck. Like, yeah.
That's a way better film.
And it's like, I guess Bruce is like, I gotta run away because, like, everyone's like, oh, poor rich kid, his parents died years ago and the guy just got shot. And, like, all eyes are always going to be on him. And then now, like, this Falcone could potentially just hit him now just because. So he just decides to run away. And this is kind of where it's cutting back to the flashback, because this is where his whole life he's just like, hey, sorry Alfred, I know you made the room up for me, but I'm going away.
Yeah. So we go back to the mountains where we see older Bruce with Ducard, and Ducard takes that blue flower, the rare blue flower that Bruce carried up the mountain, and he grinds it up. And I'm sure at this point you were like, can I get some of that stuff? Can I get some of that?
Yeah, so Liam Neeson here grinds up this blue flower, and then he's like puts it in a bowl, and then like lights it, and then like all the smoke is coming out, and he wants him to. He's like, here, take a hit of this shit.
Yeah.
What does it do? It gets you lit.
So this kind of gas that comes out heightens fear.
I love it. Breathe in your fear.
Yeah, and we now get this really cool scene of all the ninjas like forming this almost like a maze, like the kind of moving doors maze. So they'll like turn to trap off certain parts, and it's going to be Ducard versus Bruce in this maze of ninjas. But obviously there's I think some of these ninjas are just hallucinations of Bruce through this fear flower gas thing. So there's this cool scene where they're both kind of going after each other through these ninjas.
Everyone's in the same outfit, so they can blend in.
Even Bruce and Ducard.
Yeah.
At one point, Bruce gets his arm kind of cut. So Bruce notices this and decides to cut one of the other ninjas in the same place.
Yeah, he does a few of them.
Yeah, gets a few. And then Ducard grabs who he thinks is Bruce and is like, ha-ha, I got you. And Bruce then comes behind and kind of makes the same line, like, always be aware of your surroundings. He's got Ducard because he tricked him.
Yeah. Smarter. It's always about the brain.
Yeah, you got to use your brain. So he passed the test and
beat the master.
He beat the master, and we see Ra's al Ghul from a balcony watching on.
Who is also in more Nolan films, Inception. Ken Watanabe. He's just a small part here who plays quote unquote Ra's al Ghul, but he's in like a bunch. He's in the newer Godzilla movies. He's in a bunch of movies as well.
And Ra's al Ghul is basically telling him that you passed and you're almost going to be part of the League of Shadows. He mixes talking in English and another language. Do you know what language this
I looked
is?
it up.
Did you read this up?
Apparently it's just gibberish.
It's gibberish.
It's not Japanese. It's not
Mandarin, not Cantonese, not any of this. It's identified as Urdu, but it's not. It's this guy just completely made up his lines.
They're like, hey, just say whatever.
Just say whatever. Make it sound cool.
He made it sound real.
They bring out this criminal, this like thief who they've captured, and they say to be in the League of Shadows.
They say this guy like killed his neighbor, took his land and stole his neighbor's land and murdered him. So he's technically a murderer. And here in countries like where we are now, like wherever this is, it's like he'll just be like let free and like this will be fine. So we have to do the justice. We
serve justice.
Yeah, we have to be the people that do this. So they then tell Bruce that he's got to kill him. And
Bruce says he doesn't want to do it.
I'm no executioner.
He goes, oh, you think this person would show any compassion to you? And Bruce says, it's compassion that separates us from them. This man should be tried. And they go, well, like, that's not going to work. Gotham is so corrupt that you can't put justice in the hands of like the governments and the police force, and
it goes into briefly more James Bond, because you know, and always James Bond when it comes down to like James being like captured or tied up, and the bad guy's like, hey, before I kill you, let me tell you my plan.
Yeah.
And they go, Bruce, we got this plan. It's almost as if Liam Neeson's character is like, I kind of had my eyes on you since you were a kid, knowing you're rich and you probably have all this like built up anger and justice. Like, you could be I'm going to groom you to be this like this justice vigilante dude. But in the way that he wants it is like, we're going to take over the city. We're going to rule the city. You could be like,
they're saying like Gotham is like the worst.
Yeah.
And we need to kind of essentially Noah's Ark it.
Yeah.
Just destroy it and start over again.
Yeah. And there's no going back. You can't say no here. You've gone. We just trained you.
Yeah.
So you have to kill this guy.
You got to do it. You
or
got to
else.
kill this guy. So Bruce gets the sword and is preparing to like drop it on this guy's neck, and instead he flicks up like a burning coal, which lights something else on fire.
TNT.
He's then elbowing guys in the face and taking on all of the League of Shadows.
He takes on all the
his
ninjas.
own. Really cool scene here. Big fight.
Yeah, picture like a giant like dojo on the Rocky Mountain somewhere, and it looks like that,
Some
right? And that's like
temple sort of
blowing
thing.
up. Yeah, it's like crazy.
Wood ladders and all this. Everything is burning down. Ra's al Ghul fights Bruce, but part of the building collapses and falls on Ra's,
Rip.
thus killing him.
Rip.
Ducard is kind of knocked out here, so Bruce saves him and carries him down the mountain and kind of gives him to the people that...
It's like villagers.
Yeah, these villagers that Bruce saw earlier.
And they're like, we'll tell him that you saved his life. And he's like, cool, thanks.
Cheers, dude. So then he's like, hey, Alfred, can you pick me up? I gone fucked up. You got a lift.
This is like when you're like just legal drinking age and you have one of your first nights out with your friends, and things got way too out of hand, and then you realize you can't do a cab because you're 19.
Yeah.
You can't afford a cab, and
like,
you can't.
Mom.
Yeah, you got to call mom or dad. And you're like, look, I don't want to talk about it. We can talk about it tomorrow, but please pick me up.
My mum always said, like, because my mum doesn't sleep a great deal, and she doesn't really drink, so there's never the worry of, I've already had like 2 glasses of wine or whatever. My mum always said, why are you calling a cab? Just get me. Like, I'm happy to pick you up. I don't mind. And I was like, yeah, you say that now,
right,
until like 3 days from now when I piss you off for some reason, and you go, and you call me at 2 a.m. expecting me to drop everything and pick me up.
My parents would always say, you can call me and, no problem.
So, yeah, I'm not falling into that trap.
I'm not ever doing
I'm not falling into that trap, Mom.
Although I used to hang out with an ex and her friend, and she would be like, guys, we don't need to take Ubers or cabs. Like, my dad will pick me up. I'm like, okay, like, first of all, I barely know you. Now you're telling me I'm going to sit, and I'm a bigger dude, and you're in a van full of people and girls and dudes. Like, they're going to say, Braden, sitting like in the front. So now I got to sit to this person's dad at like fucking 4 a.m. all the time. So like over getting hammered all the time. Like, this guy's picking me up. I don't even know who you are.
You know what I found just ridiculous, like how the other half live, is when I've worked in Dubai.
Yeah.
And we'd have nights out, and someone would just go, oh yeah, my driver can take you home. Driver. Yeah, and they'd have a driver on call who would just pick them up whatever time.
Well, that's like Alfred here.
So Alfred
shows up.
the driver, and Bruce starts kind of telling Alfred kind of what he's been through and this idea he has that he wants to become a symbol to protect the people he cares about. He's got to be kind of disguised. And Alfred goes, all right, we might need to sort out a few things because you've been away for 7 years, Bruce. So you've been declared dead, and thus all your finances have been liquidated. So we're going to have to work on that a bit.
It's almost as if Alfred had them someone put them into Alfred's instead, but then Alfred's like, I'm not a cheeky cunt, like, I'm here for you, so I'm going to give it back to you. And
For
like,
sure.
it's all stocks in the company and stuff like that, but they all essentially think he just fucked off somewhere, like dead, legally dead, but they kind of knew like he's just gone. But
we go to a trial that Rachel Dawes, who works for the DA, is involved with, and it's the trial of Zaz. Is it Victor Zaz? I'm trying to remember his first name. This is the dude who doesn't he kill people and then like scars the tally on his body?
Oh.
He's like
a sea-level Batman
yeah,
character?
and I think he might be in one of the other films as well.
That's gross.
Victor Zaz, yeah.
Gross. Yeah.
So yeah, you look at pictures of him like here from the comics, and he's just got all these like scars of the tallies of all the people he's killed. But we meet Dr. Not Fraser Crane, unfortunately, but we meet Dr. Crane.
My second favorite Dr. Crane.
Yeah. Played by Cillian Murphy.
Killian Dane.
Cillian Dane playing Fraser Crane. I love Cillian Murphy. I think
he's good.
He is an incredible actor. Met him a few times. He would rehearse at the theatre I used to work at. Nice guy. Good-looking guy, but should never be a romantic lead because this guy is fucking
scary.
terrifying.
He's really scary.
It's weird because you look at it and you're like, you're a like traditionally handsome man, but it's those blue steel eyes that are just terrifying.
Yeah, like I think chicks dig this guy. I knew a lot of girls that were like, oh, like celebrity crush, whatever. I'm like, yeah, he's good looking, but he's kind of scary.
Might kill you.
Yeah,
might kill you.
He looks like you're. Looks like he's into.
There's some trouble in those eyes there.
Yeah, like I don't know. I'm trying to remember what else I've seen him in. He's in a lot, but
he's in Peaky Blinders is the main thing.
Yeah, I still never jumped on it, but I've heard good things.
Inception. He's the guy they incept.
He's the Inception.
He's the Inception.
Right. I know he's in 28 Days Later, but yeah, he always gives me that like kind of scary. And I guess maybe it's because I've watched this movie and I was like, oh, you're scary.
He's great though, and Christopher Nolan was in love with his eyes as well. So every scene would try and find a reason for him to take his glasses off to wipe them or something and get those eyes out.
Those eyes.
But Dr. Crane says that Zaz is insane. And obviously, in trials like murder trials and stuff, if you plead insane, it's like your mental illness did it. You're insane, so you go to a
Arkham
mental asylum like Arkham, which
like,
is in control of Dr. Crane,
right?
And we learn that he's just been doing this with all these criminals, especially the Falcone.
So Falcone's been paying him off to do this for all these guys that get caught murdering people, so that they can get out. Essentially, it's a ploy. It's again going into realism here because there is so many cases in this world where that happens. There's a few that come to my mind instantly. Particularly for Canadians, the Greyhound bus, R.I.P. Greyhound bus, the Greyhound bus,
that one
thing.
I mean, surely you've got to be clinically insane to do that.
I guess
we're talking about this guy on a Greyhound bus in, was it like Alberta area? I'm trying to remember.
I don't remember.
Somewhere in Canada, this guy like cuts off this dude sitting next to him's head and starts eating it. So everyone kind of runs off the bus and lock him in.
Yeah.
But they're waiting in buttfuck nowhere for like someone to come and pick him up as they're just watching this guy inside the bus eat this dude. And the guy...
This podcast took a turn.
Oh, yeah. The guy since has been saying like...
I'm insane.
After like, he wanted to kill himself. He was like... He has no recollection of it at all.
What the fuck?
And it was like a schizophrenic, like...
Yeah.
I don't know, attack. I don't know what the technical word is. But yeah, like, massive regret. And, I mean, that must, like, suck.
Yeah, well, it
you
sucks
woke
for
up and you're like, yo, you just ate a dude on the Greyhound.
I mean, well, at least he didn't wake up and he didn't have a head.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think I agree with like death penalties and stuff like that. But in that case, I don't know.
I find it. I mean, for me, if you're gonna kill someone, you are insane.
Yeah.
You know, like that's where I am. It's like, and therefore, can you just? Sure, if there are people with like diagnosed schizophrenia and stuff like that, but realistically, if anything has pushed you to the edge where you've killed someone, there's something not quite right in your head.
Yeah,
you know,
it's fair.
So should we just send everyone to Arkham? I don't know.
Arkham.
I don't know. That's why I'm a podcaster and not involved with any of these decisions.
That's why I should not be allowed to decide. But I definitely like it goes case for case for me. Where if I read true crime and get into it, I come to the decision, oh, this guy should be shot. Not even shot, just hang him. Like, certain people, in certain cases. Whereas other cases, I'm like, okay, put him in jail for the rest of it. Jail, to me, sounds worse. Locking a guy in a room...
I agree.
For years sounds worse. So do that than just killing people. However, me and you are paying for that guy to be in jail. So that's where it's like, if we kill him, just get rid of him.
It's then you weigh it up. It's like, is it rehabilitation or is it punishment?
Yeah.
Or is it both? Like, it's...
See, then there's ones where, like, this guy in the States, he had, the guy who had, like, women under hostage in his house for years and years and years, and then finally they escaped and he got caught and all this stuff. This guy was going to go to jail for, like, the rest of his life. He's going to die, like, multiple life sentences over, and he hung himself.
Right.
And people were mad because they're like, well, fuck, like, that's not... And that's where
that
I'm like...
happens so
yeah,
many
and that
times,
happens
yeah.
a lot. Just like Epstein, when he killed
Yeah.
himself in prison. Remember
Yes.
when he killed himself?
Oh, yeah.
When he hung himself in a jail. It's like, no, he should be stuck in a cell for the rest of his life. He should die hungry and like, all the worst things that you can imagine for people who've done terrible things. But... it's crazy that a comic book movie is talking about all this in depth and stuff. So
Absolutely.
when I'm like 14, 15, 16 watching this movie, I probably had no idea of realistic. I'm like, okay, they're not going to kill him because insanity. Now as an adult, I'm like, holy shit, this is pretty in depth.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry for that little turn. Everyone's like, what the fuck?
That's why they listen to us.
You guys talking about murder.
Yeah. We're at Wayne Manor, and Bruce sees another bat. So decides to go down the well.
It's in his house.
Yeah, this bat's in his house. He's kind of freaked out about it, so decides to follow it. And goes back down the well where he fell many moons ago. And he finds this cave. He holds up a light, and these bats start surrounding him. And you see him being, like, scared. And then he realizes he's got to face his fear to kind of complete his training. So just stands there, and it's a really cool... epic shot of just Bruce like standing there, and kind of his posture kind of straightens as he's kind of like trying to accept these bats, and they're just surrounding him. It looks really epic, and that's when the Batman theme, the wah, wah, kicks off. It's great.
Yeah, this is awesome. Obviously, it's like this. There's not a whole lot of CGI in this movie, but this is definitely where, like, it's him, and then there's bats surrounding us. It's clearly, like, it's him, and then they use the effects to make it swirl around. But epic, like, this is what you wanted to see in a movie where it's called Batman Begins. Well, how does he become Batman? Why is he like bats? What's the deal with Here you go. Yes. It's him. He's scared, and then he's like, no, I'm going to take this and make this my thing to scare people. So he stands up, and it's like, I'm Bat. He becomes Batman, and then, like... in the next shot, it's like Bruce Wayne's back. He's like a full-on... He's making this thing... Also, the Batcave is like not CGI'd like Tim Burton movies. It's like they totally made this set with a waterfall.
It's a really cool cave. And I once read this awesome article on Cracked.
Yeah.
Did you ever read Cracked?
Yeah.
And it was about the amount of money the Batcave would cost and the amount of people he'd have had to employ.
Right.
So it's like, realistically, there are at least... like 200 people that know Bruce Wayne would be Batman.
Exactly.
But here, they keep it very basic in the cave. You see him like hanging up lights, and it's you look at it and you go, yeah, I could buy that just these two have sort of set this up. It's a basic Batcave.
Yeah,
is what I'm getting
it is
at.
believable. It's showing him doing all the stuff. It's like he's the one who's doing it.
Yeah.
Because you're right. It's like, wouldn't people know who set all the... Like, did you go install these things, Bruce? It's
just like internet cables down there, you know?
So it's like him and... Poor Alfred, who's got to do all this hard labor.
Yeah.
But it's Bruce who's like... Who manages to do all this. And, like, there's an elevator pulley that he, like, uses to bring stuff down. Yeah, it's like him creating this whole... Batman Batcave thing, and it looks so sick compared to the prior movies where it's like just Michael Keaton sitting at some fucking desk with a computer.
Again, the prior movies, I'd want the toy of the Batcave more so than this.
Yeah.
But
this one's got a waterfall.
It does have a waterfall, but I don't know how that works as a toy.
It makes that would be sick. A waterfall? Yeah, that'd be
water feature.
I mean, kids always bring the toys in like to the bath and stuff, so you put the water and they're flowing through. I'm sure they got bat boats as toys.
Yeah.
100%.
So Bruce goes to Wayne Enterprises for the first time since kind of being alive again.
This is what I mean. Like, instantly he's back.
He's back. We've seen a guy called Earl has taken over kind of Bruce's role. and is a bit of a dick. But Bruce is interested in the science department.
He makes it seem like he wants to start from the ground up. He's back. He wants to learn, so he's going to start in sciences. And
He's going to start in sciences.
when he meets fucking God.
Yes. Morgan Freeman playing Lucius Fox, and this is Nolan flexing those. Hey, you're looking for a director for James Bond? How about you look at my Q scene here?
Sure.
Because this is Lucius Fox showing... I've got in my notes here Bond. I mean Bruce.
Yeah.
Like all these like suits and military equipment and like grapple hooks and all this stuff.
But
and
again, going into the realism thing here, they're like, how does Batman have all this shit? How's, like, wouldn't people know how he fucking orders stuff if he's making stuff? But here it goes into, like, every little thing.
It's like a whole, like, weaponry department.
Yeah,
it's like
I love
Tony
it.
Stark and Iron Man
Yeah.
with all the weapons. It's
Yeah.
like, this is what Wayne Enterprises does. We
'Cause-
provide this to the military and stuff.
Fox is in the comics. Like, he is
Yes.
in some of the comics in this role. So it's crazy that they do this. It's like every little thing, they, even if it's in like a quick scene, it's like down to like Bruce and them and I think Alfred, who are like working on the ears and like coming up with the design, and they're like, well, we could order this, but like if we order this, people are gonna know we ordered this. So he's like, all right, I'll order 10,000 of them so people know. Like,
And they're ordering,
And then
10,000 from China, and then
Like, over
10,000
here.
from Vietnam, and like all
yeah,
this
so
kind
like
of stuff.
so like you can't be tracked.
Yeah.
And then it's Lucius Fox here. He's showing him like this, all these different things, and Bruce is like coming up in his head like, okay, I could use this and stuff like that. So when he comes up with the magnetic thing that like it's the cape, like the thing that makes you fly,
Like memory cape.
and he explains it to him. So it's like literally like you could blink and miss this, but it explains to you, oh, Batman doesn't just jump off roofs and can fly.
No, so yeah, he's going, at first, Bruce says, I want to borrow this suit. It's almost like a wetsuit.
I'm going spelunking.
Spelunking, which is cave diving. So, as you said, like it makes it practical and real. It's like, this is the kind of thing you'd wear for cave diving. And then when it comes to the cape, because we see like a clip of him like fighting crime and then running away from police,
Right.
and he like leaps from one building to the other and just smashes hard against these ladders,
Yeah.
and takes quite a tumble. So he's like, I'm gonna need something to help me with this. So he goes, I want to go base jumping now. So gets given this cape for base jumping.
And he's
you
like-
go like, that figures, that makes sense.
And then you go, well, this guy clearly must know he's Batman. This guy, Bruce is like, hey, like, I don't want you telling people I'm doing this. He's like, well, actually, like, I work for you, so
this is yours anyway.
like, this is your stuff. I can't tell anything. And he's like kind of winking at him, like, I know you're not fucking base jumping and spelunking, whatever the fuck it is, but like,
He says, if I don't know, I don't have to lie when people
don't
ask
tell
me, but don't treat me like an idiot.
Yeah, so he's like, all right, cool. So that's where the relationship definitely like helps him come up with the whole outfit and stuff. Because at first he's using like ninja gear and a stapler at one point, but it's like now he's like coming up with all this stuff. And Alfred's like, yeah, like this cave, like your history, the history of the Waynes or whatever, like owned this land and this mansion, and these caves were used like in the Underground Railroad. They mentioned like
Yes, talks about his great grandfather who helped free slaves.
Yeah.
So, kind of tying in the history that the Waynes have always been looking out,
heroes.
always been heroes. Like Thomas Wayne was very charitable and very like well liked,
Right.
and because they're always talking about ruining your legacy, ruining the Wayne name,
Right.
and we learn even like generations ago they were saving these slaves. But again, that kind of explains the tunnels. Everything is explained, and with Nolan, all his films, he mixes like actual science, and then gives you some bullshit, but explains it in a way that you like kind of believe it's real. So like memory foam cape, or not memory foam, but
It's like got the magnetic thing that he devices and stuff. He's got like devices for all this.
I
shit.
don't know if it's real or not,
No,
but
it's
I'm
not.
buying it.
Yeah.
It's like, this seems legit.
Yeah, I dig it.
But then something catches Bruce's eye.
What's that over
He's
there?
like, what's that over there? And he sees the tumbler.
You wouldn't be interested in that.
Oh, such a great line. So he goes driving in this big kind of tank tank like sports car hybrid.
This got heat when like this movie came out. People were like, "Wait a second, that's the fucking Batmobile?"
Oh.
No, people were like, "Fuck this, that's not the Batmobile. You want like the flashy shit with the lights and all this stuff,
The wings and
yeah, you wanted that like the toys, right?" And then you look at this and you're like, "Well, actually, this is real. This is practical. This
Yeah.
is what he would use. It's not this fucking shit from the last few movies."
So he goes driving this around and asks, "Does it come in black?" The Tumblr is fucking awesome.
Yeah,
I
like
think.
come on, like.
And as
this
you
is
mentioned,
sick.
like Bale did most of his stunts, but was allowed nowhere near this car.
I feel like this when The Dark Knight did its rounds for like media in Canada, they did a tour of it. So this Tumblr,
Yeah, I've seen it too. Yeah,
they like came around the world. Like actually, its stop here was at a big radio station, TV stations dished down by the water, and like people would go and like to get pictures with it and stuff like that, and like it's fucking sick. It looks like I guess. When you're a kid, you're like, oh, it's not as flashy as the other ones, but then you're like, what? It like can roll and tumble and do
so
all
much cooler,
Yeah,
I
it's
think.
so sick. It's easily the best Batmobile. Like even in the newer movies, like how are you gonna make anything look like in the new one coming out, like Justice League and shit? It's like just kind of taking from this one.
All the Batmans since then have gone
Yeah.
for more of this like military style,
Yeah.
bigger car. We see when I was wondering if this was maybe an Easter egg, like a reference to something, because as Bruce is trying on all these different things, he has these gloves with like long fingers that
Yeah.
are similar to the cape that become like memory and like
Yeah, the
fits.
magnetic stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, and we don't see him use these at all. So it's like he's trying out shit and is like, maybe this? Nah. I wonder it feels like this could be maybe a reference to an early design of Batman or something that was once used in the comics and then went, no. We see that a lot in superhero films, the little winks.
Yeah, but this is what he uses when he flies. Like this is how now. So he puts it into the thing. So I guess when he jumps, he goes.
Oh, okay. So he puts like there's like gloves in his.
This
cape
is
sort of
explaining
thing.
him flying later
Gotcha.
in the movie because you see him like even at the end of the movie where he just glides. It's like, well, wait, how does a fucking guy do that with a cape that is just a cape? So this is explaining
Makes
how he
sense.
does it. Yeah, definitely. And in the next movie when he's base jumping off fucking what, in China or something crazy.
Alfred asks him why bats as he's making these like
Emblems.
bat like ninja stars and emblems, and he goes, because they frighten me, makes my enemies feel my dread.
I'm gonna make them fear what I feared.
So we're going to the Falcone big drug deal, and Batman, now fully suited, is gonna take these guys down.
We finally see him,
and it's really cool because we don't quite see him right away. We just see men like disappear.
It's like a scary movie,
like just pulled into shadows.
It's your like in Predator. It's like the instead it's the opposite. It's like the bad guys are these guys getting picked off.
Kids hiding in the kitchen in Jurassic Park. It's like that kind of thing. But it's the bad guys getting picked off. We see a lamp getting taken out, and we see the Bat Star, and then Batman drops down and takes out one guy, just like engulfs him with his cape and flies off and disappears. This scene's really cool. And then one guy is like, where are you? Batman comes down. Here. Who are you?
What the hell are you?
And 1 hour, 3 minutes into Batman Begins, we finally see Bruce in the cowl, in the full outfit, and he says the immortal 2 words, I'm Batman.
Yeah, epic intro scene here for the first time you see bats, and he's like coming in, scaring these guys, throwing the batarangs, which look cool. Everything is like on point here for the intro, killing these bad guys off. It does a really good job of taking. I was a big fan of the animated series, and we mentioned the Mask of Phantasm, and it takes so many elements from that. It's like they use this like scary neo-noir stuff, but here he's like. The guys just disappear. He's like
it's the theatricality of it all, right?
It's really cool to see it kind of being brought to life, and it's not cheesy at all. It's completely disappeared. It's disassociated from all the past movies we've watched. Again, so many differences.
And we've seen the first hour and 3 minutes of this film is building up to this moment.
Yeah.
So it's like, I completely buy that you can do all this shit.
Batman has begun.
So Batman gives Rachel a load of photographic evidence tying the drug deal with Falcone.
He hangs up he takes him here.
Yeah,
beats him up.
he's tied Falcone up to a light like
Make
a
it look
bat.
like the bat.
And Gordon and his men find Falcone. So Batman's just been like, here you go.
He's just helping the cops realize, even though a lot of the cops are dirty and stuff like that. I also like you mentioned, it's like all this whole series, he's beating up the bad guys, and as Batman's like fleeing, he sees a homeless guy near the water wearing Bruce's coat from all the years later and goes, nice coat. Flies away. The guy's like, thanks.
Alfred tells Bruce to maybe take up polo to explain these injuries and lack of social life. And we learn that some Wayne Enterprises weaponry, a microwave emitter, which was on this kind of ship, has been stolen. All the men on the ship has been taken out, and this microwave emitter is perhaps displaced and in the wrong hands.
Bruce isn't told about it yet.
Bruce isn't told. This is Earl, and
which of course you're kind of like suspicious of, because you see the clips as he's describing this, and it's like some unit of men are taking them out, so you can kind of go, okay, well, we know someone didn't die earlier in the movie because someone saved him, and that could bite him. But of course, all these comic book superhero movies, they got like so much science behind it. Like Spider-Man is always about like everyone's into science.
Yeah,
everyone's like, oh, what is this? It's just the same thing. It's like, what does this thing do? Okay, well, it actually takes water and then it makes it into
vaporizes
vapes. It's a giant vape.
It's a giant vape. We get a scene, kind of the only scene in this film where we see how much of a playboy Bruce Wayne is.
That's what I mean.
He does it for show. He does it to kind of throw people off.
Yeah.
But
he wants to show himself that he's Bruce Wayne. He's a rich boy millionaire dickhead.
Exactly. Yeah. So he's at this hotel restaurant, and one of the waiters comes up to him and is like, "Hey, your guests are swimming in the pool, like in their
dresses." He shows up in his fucking Suicide Door Lambo here, and he's got two models sitting on top of each other to fit in his car because they can't. And then eventually gets the doors open. He's like, "Yeah, cool, whatever, park it." And then while he's having dinner, these girls go off and start,
pissing around,
in the fountain of this fancy restaurant, and they're like, "You can't do that here in this hotel.
You gotta leave."
And he's like, and just hands him a check and says, "I just bought this hotel.
I own this place now.
I own this hotel."
And so Bruce goes and jumps in the fountain as well.
Yeah, this is the scene where you get that Bruce Wayne playboy-esque, again, kind of Bondish character where he's like, I'm a shitty person, and then he's leaving, and of course he unfortunately runs into Rachel.
He runs into Rachel, who sees him being a bit of a douche, a bit of a playboy.
She sees through it.
She sees through it, and Bruce obviously can't tell her that he's Batman and all this, but he says, "Look, there's more to me than just this. Deep down, there is more. This is kind of surface. Rachel, come on, it's me, it's Bruce." And she says, "It's not who you are underneath. It's what you do that defines you."
It's true.
Which is true.
Yeah, it's not who you are.
It's all very well saying, "Oh no, inside I'm a good person." It's like, yeah, well, if you're doing dickish things, you're a dick.
And then he's like, "Huh, you're right." And then he goes, "Oh wait, where are those two models at? All right, let's go."
Let's go.
They say, "Bruce, come on, we're gonna go buy some more hotels." So he's like, "Yeah, all right."
We see Dr. Caine, who goes to visit Falcone in prison because he's cut his wrists because he's trying to get the insane plea. And he goes in and he's like, Falcone's like, "Yeah, the walls are closing in. I'm losing my mind. Yada, yada, yada. I'm insane. Just get me out."
Saying all the stuff, yeah.
Yes. Falcone says that to Caine, "Look, I know what you've been doing. I know that you've been experimenting with the inmates at Arkham, and I know that you don't want the cops to look any closer at the drugs." We learned that that was only half of the drug deal, and that there's this other half that is somewhere else.
So he's not paying Caine in money, he's paying Caine in the specific drug that Caine is requesting.
Yes. And Caine keeps on referring to a he. that we don't know who he is.
A higher power. And he's saying that he probably wants Falcone dead as well. So Caine puts on the Scarecrow mask, like this sack on his head with like a gas mask feature, and emits this vapor, this gas, which poisons Falcone and heightens all his fears. He freaks out.
So now we see the kind of the sack on Crane's face kind of turns like through the hallucination into like a evil scarecrow face, and Falcone starts screaming and is now legit insane. So has to go to Arkham.
So this is where we get to see the Scarecrow finally on a Batman movie. Like, we've seen it in the cartoons, but the first time this character was supposed to be brought in, like so many times, a lot of directors and people think it's such a creative character that they wanted to bring it live, but it wasn't a big enough character. So finally you get to see it, and it's so cool the way they initiate this character.
I think it's a character that works in cartoon and comics, but I can see a lot of directors going,
yeah,
right,
but
how do we... Like, the Joker, you just put in makeup and a suit, you know? Like, a Scarecrow, it's same issue when you wear a mask to a Halloween party.
Yeah.
It's like, you got to take it off. And whereas here, doing it with the hallucinogen to make just this sack turn, and you can go, even though this whole film is based in reality, because it's a hallucination, you can go a bit fantasy-based with it and make it creepy and scary, and
so
I think it's so cool.
Reading this, Christopher Nolan originally just had that the drug did this to you. It made you see the Scarecrow.
Right.
So Nolan didn't want the mask at all.
Okay.
And it was the screenwriter, David Goyer, who was like, no. It's like, trust me, first of all, people will fucking shit on you if you do not incorporate. You can't have the Scarecrow not be the Scarecrow. Like, you can't just have him being a doctor. It's a cop-out. Plus, you want to sell the toys. So he said, you need to have the mask. So he had to convince him. So when they made the mask and showed him this, he's like, oh, absolutely. That looks sick. So it's definitely a right way to introduce this character. So the character of the Scarecrow is, he's got this thing, this vape he hits you with, and when it goes into your system, you hallucinate and your fears are heightened and stuff. So really creative. I always think the Batman has the best bad guys in the game, like
100%,
top to bottom.
100%.
Like, obviously Joker is above every villain ever made in the history, but then like his B, C's, like they're all fucking like
everyone. I feel like my parents, who aren't really into any of this stuff, could probably name you six.
A few, yeah.
Six
because they're iconic, yeah.
Characters, whereas like all the Marvel, like I love Marvel, but their villains are nowhere near as iconic as Batman.
And like they do a good job of, again, making this make sense. Well, how does this Scarecrow do this? Well, he's using drugs. He's not using magic.
No.
He's using drugs. And it's like, as someone who has used hallucinogenics in my life or whatever, this makes sense.
This can happen.
Like, obviously, there's probably not a flower drug that makes you do this, but people who do shrooms have bad trips.
For sure,
you know what I mean?
So
it makes sense to me. I go, all right, it's scary.
Batman approaches Gordon and warns him that a storm is coming, and that was only half the shipment of drugs they recovered. What I like, this scene here, there are shots of Gotham, and it looks like a legit city, but there are still like certain things that make it feel a bit otherworldly. Like the monorail always makes something look kind of different, and there's even like lightning in the background, and it's got a slight like purple tinge to it, so it kind of blurs. It's like, this is still a comic book movie, but I like that. It's subtle,
the gritty New York, and Gordon, who's like now like a higher up in the not still high up, but a different position years later. And he lives...
Probably a sergeant here, I think.
Yeah,
or something like that.
And he's got like a wife and kid, and it's like he's got some like an apartment, but like nothing like great. And Batman like talking to him here. It's like, it's a good scene where Gordon's still like, this fucking dude's in a bat costume, and I'm hearing about him, but he's helping me, so I'm gonna listen to him.
Yeah, he says like, I've been wrong before, but like I think he's trying to help. But Commissioner Loeb wants the bat taken down. He's like, no, this is our job. He
sucks.
We have this character in every comic book film. Someone like, no,
in every film, there's always
it's wrong.
the like the mean cop leader.
Batman tracks down Flass, who is one of
the dirty cops.
And tries to get the information on the rest of the drugs.
With the greatest,
where's all the rest of this?
With the greatest line in the movie, the best line in the whole movie. Where are the other drugs going? Do I look like a cop?
Hanging him upside down, just intimidating him.
Batman's rule, we've talked about it. I won't kill you. I'm not an executioner. But I will drop you from 7 stories so you break all the bones in your legs and your body, and you're a vegetable for the rest of your life.
Yeah, pretty much.
I won't kill you.
I won't kill you.
Yeah.
My conscience is clean. Batman sees Little King Joffrey, and
he says, "Don't drink." Never mind.
Yeah. If your uncle gives you a chalice, just don't drink from it.
Kayfabe-wise, storyline-wise, does this kid show up later on in the movies? He does, doesn't he? Isn't he supposed to be someone? He's not the kid. He's not supposed to be Jordan Levitt, right?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
But maybe they planted that this could perhaps be a Robin one day or something.
Yeah, I think they did. Because he says, the kids won't believe me when I tell them I saw you, and so he throws them a weapon.
A batarang or something. He's like, yeah, there you go.
Take my grapple gun, kid. Go.
I got more.
Knock yourself out.
So Batman tries to take Crane's men down during another deal, and then Crane puts his mask on and uses the hallucinogen again, which causes Batman to hallucinate. And this is a cool shot of the Scarecrow, because worms and maggots coming out of his mouth, and then bats fly out.
Again,
it looks awesome.
Takes your fears. Yeah. And then, so Batman so Batman starts to see the Scarecrow with bats and shit, so that starts to freak him out. If the Scarecrow and you were to get into an argument and a fight, and he sprayed you with this, what would you see?
I think wasps.
Wasps?
A swarm of wasps.
Yeah, that's pretty terrifying.
I don't like swarms of anything.
Yeah.
Like it.
Yeah, it freaks me out.
I've got something. What's the name? I think it's typrophobia, which is a fear of little holes.
Oh. Yeah.
And it just makes me feel like sick and very uncomfortable.
Weird.
And I get the same sort of thing from any swarms, like swarms of ants, swarms of flies, and I think wasps are cunts.
Yeah. So, I don't like bugs.
So
and
I
stuff
think
like
that would probably be it.
Like bats, obviously, a giant swarm of them would be fun. If we came home and I left the smoking window open and the bat showed up, I wouldn't be that scared.
No,
I'd be like, that's
how are we
going to
get this out?
I'd be like, let's get it out of here. But I've had I'm pretty sure I've had to get a bat out of a cottage before, and like I wasn't as freaked out as I thought I would.
So I believe bats are protected, so it makes it really hard to you can't get exterminated.
Yeah, you can't kill
bats.
Yeah.
Whereas you can for like other infestations. So it can, like, bats can be a real problem.
I feel like if the Scarecrow hit me with it, I'd probably like swarms of something, or snakes would definitely get me. I don't like snakes. I've made that clear on some shows. That would definitely be the one to make me go over the top. Like, I'd freak the fuck out.
I just hallucinate seeing our Patreon numbers going down and down and down.
That would be a fear now. Yeah, that would be a fear now.
Clips of Doug Ford saying, we're extending lockdown to the earliest August 14th. No! Turns out Moderna's poison.
There is a shortage of marijuana. No! How would it work if he hit you and you're scared of heights? You all of a sudden you'd think you're on like a platform somewhere. Like, oh my god, I'm scared of heights. Yeah, let us know if the Scarecrow hit you. What is a strange thing that you may be listening and that you're scared of? At upNXT podcast, what is the thing that gets you? What would it be? Because spiders obviously are a lot of people.
I'm like, I said to you yesterday, I was like, are you okay with spiders? Basically because
why?
In my room I've had these two like pretty big spiders.
Fuck.
And I'm like, I don't want to kill it, but it seems a lot of effort to try and get them out of the window.
Yeah.
So I just left them there, and I like asked you, "Are you cool with them?" And you're like, "I mean, I don't like them, but I'm not bothered." And they kill the flies we have.
Yeah,
so
if they kill other things.
So I'm okay as long as they. And you know what? If they do crawl in my mouth when I'm asleep, as long as I don't know about it,
protein.
I don't really care. Protein.
I will say, we had some of our listeners on a Patreon show. Was it Chris Thunder from Down Under who mentioned spiders?
Yeah.
Or was it we have a lot of Aussies, but mentioned the huntsman spider in his room and explaining, Googling what that is. is like going to Australia made me less afraid of bugs and little shit here. Because I've seen what they deal. I'm like, why would you live there?
Yeah.
Why would you live there? You got beaches, sure, but the spiders that would come into our apartment would be fucking massive. And, like, I can't deal with that.
Yeah, I'm only scared of things that can hurt me.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
a spider
yeah.
here isn't going to kill me.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I might get a little bite,
Yeah,
and, like,
yeah.
that's annoying, but, like, life's annoying, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
And I get how they can startle you if I'm not aware of one, and then I see one scuttle, it will make you, but I can't say I'm particularly scared.
Scarecrows are scary.
Yeah.
Scarecrows are pretty scary.
I mean, that's their job.
We were just getting super stoned last night watching clips of Goosebumps, and there's an episode called Scarecrow Walks at Midnight. That was one of my favorite episodes, and that's like the scarecrows and stuff. But there's a short story I'm a big fan of called Harold, and it's about a scarecrow. And
Okay.
like, I recommend it. I think they turned it into a short movie as well. But
Harold.
Yeah, used to read that and scare the shit out of my young cousin. But scarecrows themselves look cool, and to see him attacking Batman here using the fear mechanism thing, that's like he doesn't like he. They do a good job in the movie, because if you're watching, you're like, well, wait a second. The way it's attacking him, his vision and the way he's moving and his breathing is similar to when he breathed in the smoke earlier in the movie. So if you're connecting the dots
things
a little bit, but then Scarecrow is like, as Batman's freaking out and seeing all the bats, and you see him like hallucinating, Scarecrow's like, you look like a man who takes things too seriously, so I think you need to lighten up. And he gasses him and then lights him on fire.
He goes all Randy Orton on his ass.
Holy shit, this is epic. Great line, underrated line from this villain. And then he just lights him on fire, and Batman's just lit up.
Jumps out the window.
It's fucking lit.
Alfred saves him, and Bruce is telling him, yo, I've been poisoned. We need Lucius Fox.
That's called Lucius.
And luckily Lucius Fox has made an antidote. Like, we needed him on these
Vaccinations from Wayne Enterprise. He's like, hey, he wakes up and he's like, hey, how long have I been out? And he's like, dude, you've been out for 2 days. He's like, what? He's like, yeah, you almost died.
You almost died. Rachel shows up as it's Bruce's birthday to drop off a birthday present.
Bruce plays it off to Lucius like, yeah, I went out and got had a little, had some nose beers that were
a little funny,
some fentanyl in it or something. I don't know, but it's no.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I know.
Yeah. Rachel reveals that her boss has been missing for 2 days. Her boss at the DA's office, and they learn that Falcone has been moved to Arkham Asylum on suicide watch. She gives Bruce the present, and it's revealed to be the arrowhead from when they were kids. So Bruce is like, Falcone's in Arkham now. He's starting to like connect the dots here.
But Alfred's like, yeah, you're not going anywhere. It's your birthday. Like, all these people are coming to the house tonight. And he's like, I don't give a fuck. Like, just make them wait. Who cares?
So yeah, like Alfred's like, it's the Wayne name.
What are you doing?
He's like, yeah, I'm saving the world, Alfred.
Yeah, Alfred comes around though. Alfred's like usually a middleman. This is where he's like, yeah, you got to show face. It's your birthday. And he's like, there's more important things.
We see Earl, who kind of is worried about like what Fox has been stumbling upon with the like stolen microwave emitter and all that, and says, oh, your department has now been kind of merged with archives, and thus you don't have a job anymore.
You're gone, Lucius.
Didn't you get the memo? This guy's a dick.
Yeah, so he basically fires Lucius, who Bruce really needs.
Yes.
So that sucks.
Rachel kind of doesn't trust Caine at all, is aware that what he's doing, that he's working with Falcone and getting all these people off on insane
They
pleas.
also tried to kill her at one point when we first saw Batman and her, and it was very apparent, like the word on the street was there's money on the table to get her killed, so she shuts up. And she doesn't get killed, so Crane's like, "You bitch, you're still alive." So for now. So he's got a plan to like kill her himself.
Caine does the master villain thing, which is like, I'm just going to tell you what I've been doing. So shows her where they make the hallucinogen and that they're going to put it into the water supply, and he drugs and kidnaps her.
he mentions to his men like, "Oh, is she dead?" He's like, she will be. Like I'm doing this so she has a terrible death. So she's freaking out. Everything's scaring her or whatever. She just sees what does she see when she's scared? Like not being with Bruce? I don't know.
I guess
commitment. That's something I would see too. I feel like she's like freaking out, and he mentions like by the end of the night, like she'll die. From this. I hit her with a strong dose.
But Batman comes to save the day, catches Caine, and even uses his own drug on him, and is trying to find out who Caine is working for. And this time it's Caine who's freaking out because Batman's in the bat suit, but his face is all scary, like the mouth is all like coming together with like shit coming out of it. The eyes are glowing red. Looks awesome. Again,
the only real like part of this movie that's like you could say
fantastic.
Is magic and shit. But again, they explain it's the drugs, it's a hallucination, and Batman is terrifying here. He's like a Power Rangers bad guy, like ooze dripping and talking. It's so terrifying. It's fucking sick. So
we learn that Caine has been working for Ra's al Ghul.
And Bruce is kind of taken aback, like, nah, he's dead.
He's dead.
I saw him die. And he's like, nah, fam. I did think Cillian Murphy did a good job of playing the classic Batman. You know he had a kick out of this, because there's a scene where he takes his mask off and he's looking around and he's like telling his crew, like, oh, the Bat's here. He's doing the classic, like, oh, Batman's
Dark
here.
Knight as well. It's like,
oh, Batman's here. He's so good at that. It's such almost like the one nod to like the 60s where like the bad guy, it's the way his like body is like looking around.
It's almost the adrenaline rush here we go.
Yeah.
I love to tie this to wrestling. WrestleMania 29, CM Punk Undertaker. Punk does his great entrance with Living Color, and then is in the ring, and the gong goes off, and he laughs, he smiles, he's like, "Fuck yeah, the Undertaker, the Batman's coming." It's such a cool like,
even though he's gonna beat you up.
Yeah, it's such a cool villain moment to have.
So Batman is now the Scarecrow was smart because he called the cops knowing that like the cops are going to chase Batman.
Yes.
So now Batman's got to get out of there.
Yeah. So Batman breaks into Arkham using like this sonic sound and bats to kind of distract everything.
Okay, so this counts as a bat gadget.
Oh yeah.
So bat gadgets we've seen in the past. We've had the bat boat. Mm-hmm. We've had the grapple hooks in the past movies. We've had the credit card.
We've had the shark repellent.
The shark repellent, that's right. We've had some crazy bat gadgets. But guys, it's not like Get Smart with the phone as the shoe phone. It's beyond that. It's the shoe bat phone, almost, technically, because he's not the bat phone like in the bat cave. It's the bat phone, meaning he's calling the bats.
Yes.
So he, out of his boot, Batman pushes a sonar button thing that calls the bats.
Yeah, because bats can hear this sound humans can't. So all these bats are coming through Arkham, but as you mentioned, the police are after Batman as well. And this is where we have the Batmobile. The Tumblr gets to show off because we have this awesome car chase scene.
Yeah, it's like he's carrying Rachel and he's saving her while running through the shots of like all these bats flying around, and the cops are scared of the bats. The bats are flying everywhere. I think that's pretty epic that he uses this like sonar thing to get all the bats to follow him and surround him to get the escape.
Just visually, it's fucking
cool
as well.
It looks really cool. That might be the coolest thing. But then he gets into the Tumblr and you're like, oh, so it's in black. He got it in black, and he drives out and he's flying through, and the cops are like, okay, we got he's on the run. He's driving a tank.
Yeah, and it's like the other police going like, whoa. What am I looking for? What am I looking for? And
fucking tank.
You'll know once you see it. You'll know.
The fucking giant thing.
So yeah, this scene's great. The Tumblr's like driving over cars, up walls and shit. Yeah, it's a great chase scene.
He's got like stealth mode, hiding in the darkness. It looks so sick. So he does eventually save Rachel to his bat cave.
But we see a disgruntled looking Alfred who's been watching the news report of this chase. And he's like, I thought you said, Bruce, this wasn't about thrill-seeking. Well, what the fuck is all this?
Yeah,
come on.
He's like, it's not about thrill-seeking, it's about good TV.
Yes. Alfred tells him that you can't make it personal. If you make it personal, then you're just a vigilante.
Right.
And Bruce wants to get rid of all these guests who are at his birthday, but Alfred says you're going to ruin your father's legacy. You got to show up. You got to be there.
So I think he has some of the antidote that Lucius made. So he's using it on Rachel, but she's going to come to eventually, just like he did. So he insists Alfred hey, get the hell out of here. Take her home, so it's not suspicious that I saved her and I'm Batman and stuff. But she's probably going to figure it out. And I'll go deal as Bruce with the party, even though he just merely escaped dying, getting arrested, and all this shit. Now he's just going to pretend. He's going to take the costume off, get in the tux, and pretend he's Bruce.
Yeah, just have a moment of fun.
And there's all these
everything goes to shit.
Yeah,
again.
and it's great that he's quickly and changing up in his stuff, and the little things that the start of his Batcave where here he's got a piano, you push these 2 notes here, 2 notes here, and
the little nods that feels very 60s, doesn't it? Dung dung, and then a door swings open.
No one would ever play those notes he played. It's a C and a D at the same time, and then another one on that. It's pretty. Yeah, it was good. And then he gets in there, and now he's got to be Bruce, and here we go.
So now we have the good guys hatching their plan to take down the bad guys. We have Bruce talking to Fox to see if he can make more of this antidote and if there's a way they can distribute it the same way. And Fox is well, you know what would be useful? A microwave emitter, but one of them just went missing.
And Bruce is yo, what do you mean this microwave went missing?
What do you mean it went missing? Our microwave went missing.
Yeah, it's true.
We need a new one.
So here the bad guys. Clearly, here the bad guys we can't figure out. We're trying to put the pieces together, and it's Bruce is just figuring it out now, and he's all right, Lucius, I need you to just work on this. Go figure this out. And he's well, the guy fired me, and he's okay, I'll worry about that. And he's I can't even get in. I don't have an access card. He's
you're a smart guy. You'll figure it out.
So he's go quickly and do this, because Bruce now is in his head wait a second, what's going on here? But then it comes full circle.
Yeah, we have one of the guests at the party says that there's someone who really wants to speak to Bruce Wayne, and says that it's someone by the name of Ra's al Ghul. And Bruce is that can't be right. He's dead.
He acts like he almost seen a ghost. Not yet. And then the guy turns around, and it's not Ra's al Ghul, but it's someone dressed as him.
It's someone dressed as him. And then revealed is Ducard, who basically says, I'm Ra's al Ghul.
What? Spoilers, yeah. So he reveals the whole time that I'm Ra's al Ghul.
And do you think this is a way of kind of nodding their head to, because in the comics doesn't Ra's al Ghul is it, what's the name, the Leviathan pit or something that brings him back to life?
He's got magic.
There's
a
reincarnation thing. So I think this is a little nod to that, being okay, you thought Ra's al Ghul was dead, but now this is actually Ra's al Ghul and he's alive.
And again, part of you is well, wait a second, wouldn't Liam Neeson just be Ra's al Ghul? And it's well, yeah, he is. So he's essentially, I'm secretly doing this. And it's all a play on the whole thing where Bruce tricked him into thinking he got him that one time, but it was a fake out with the other guy. It's always knowing your surroundings. So it's another chess game here of the mind. One-upping each other.
Always a step ahead, and tells Bruce that he warned him about compassion, because obviously Bruce saved his life.
He's I saved your life. What the fuck, bro? I could have let you die. And he's yeah, I told you, compassion.
To be you.
He's got some points about compassion and love. He says, if someone has, if you love someone, he says, I once had a family and all this, you have to get rid of that to make yourself not vulnerable, essentially. Yes. And it's pretty true, right? The easiest way to hurt someone is using other people.
And that's why Bruce created the symbol.
Yeah.
But obviously Ra's al Ghul knows Bruce Wayne is Batman and is kind of threatening Rachel and all of them.
He looks around the room instantly and realizes his party has a lot of regular people, civilians, but then within the crowd now he realizes there's some of these League of Shadows guys, so he's a little concerned, and he says, your quarrel is with me, says Bruce, yo, don't hurt these people. And he's well, either I hurt these people or you tell the truth. You tell everyone, get the fuck out. So Bruce, without even like thinking about it, goes, "Yeah, hold on, I got this," and just goes and cuts.
You know,
he
he wanted to do this anyway. He just like slags off everyone there. So they're like, "Oh well, we know when we're not wanted."
Yeah.
So they will leave.
So he cuts a promo on the crowd, being like, "You're all here because I'm rich. You're not my friends." But he acts super drunk.
Yeah.
So he's slurring his words. Sounds like Matthew Perry on that Friends reunion.
You're not funny. But
he's like talking like this and tells everyone, "Fuck off." So all these rich people are like, "All right, clearly you don't want us here," so they leave. And that was his plan to get them out.
yeah. And now Ra's al Ghul decides, I'm going to burn down Wayne Manor. You burnt down my house, I'm going to burn down your house. So there's a big fight at Wayne Manor. The whole place is burning down. This time Bruce gets trapped underneath some falling debris, but Alfred,
He's back.
comes to the save and goes, why did you do all those push-ups if you can't even lift up a bloody log?
Well, I love his accent. We've talked about him off air many times, just because I don't know what's the technical accent he's got, but it's like the way he talks.
Cockney.
Yeah, it's like the way his voice though is like no one like he talks. It's like
I've always done this running joke where like they'll Christopher Nolan's like, yeah, Sir Michael, that was great, but remember he's a posh butler, okay? So do it. Oh, you want posher this time? All right, got it. Why do you even do those push-ups if you can't even lift up a bloody log? Is that right? Sure, Michael. We'll change the character a bit. It's fine.
and low key, Christian Bale's looking over like fucking guy.
I'm gonna do this American
I gotta do this American accent.
There's Michael Caine just being Michael Caine.
See, like I had no idea Christian Bale was not American.
Yeah.
When you watch this movie, you would just figure that's like his voice. So yeah, what's the point of all these push-ups? And he saves Bruce here, but like the chaos here of the whole Wayne Manor is getting destroyed by these League of Shadows. But in the same time, while it's cutting to these clips, it's showing like their plan is in act throughout the city. So like it was all this plan to fuck with
Just release this everywhere in Gotham. There's a nice moment between Bruce and Alfred where Bruce thinks he's failed Gotham, and Alfred reminds him, why do we fail, sir? So we can pick ourselves back up. Rather than
I can't wait till we get to talk about the rovies the size of tangerines.
I made a promise to your parents, Master Wayne, to protect you. And I haven't!
Fuck, I mean, I know him obviously from Austin Powers 3. But
Right.
remember, he's the dad.
Of all the films
Yeah,
to say I
yeah.
remember Michael Caine from.
Yeah, exactly.
Jesus.
Alfie.
Yeah.
Alfie's lit. What's
Italian
the one?
Job.
Is he in the OG Italian Job?
Yeah.
Okay.
Zulu.
Maybe,
yeah.
yeah.
He's great. So Ra's and his men have now raised all the bridges at Gotham to trap everyone inside and release the poison as Rachel is comforting little King Joffrey. We then see Scarecrow just
running amok.
He's escaped and he's running around on a horse, but it looks like some kind of Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse kind of thing. Because of the hallucinogen, this horse is like breathing fire and has red eyes, and Scarecrow looks terrifying riding this thing.
So Ra's al Ghul and the League of Shadows leave Bruce in the same wreckage that he left them, except Ra's does not help Bruce. He does not save him. So he thinks Bruce is dead at this point.
Yeah.
But Bruce is saved. So in the meantime, Ra's shows up with his crew, and it reveals, they stole the microwave fucking vaporizer thing, and they turn it on right in front of Rachel.
Yes.
And she's like, she doesn't know what this thing is, but then realizes, so when the bad guys are putting that powder shit in the water, this app turns the water into vapor, so it goes back into the air, and then poof, everyone's getting scared.
Going crazy.
Yeah, so then it's quite chaos. It's similar to the third movie where like the whole city is like taken under.
Yeah, the third one is, they lock it down, don't they?
It's very similar because it's a play on one of the comics, and I'm blanking on it now. It was one of my favorite ones where it's like this happens. Like, this city sucks.
Oh, yeah.
You should not live in Gotham, clearly. But the bad guy's plan is coming in, and the cool scene with Scarecrow on the horse is pretty terrifying.
It looks cool, yeah.
But then I think Rachel gets her due when she, shocks him?
Yeah, she shocks him off the horse.
Yeah, she's vaxxed now. So
Yeah.
she has the antidote.
True, yeah.
Right? So.
And Batman saves Rachel and Joffrey, and Rachel asks Batman's name. She's like, who are you? And he goes,
It's not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me.
Bruce? So, yeah, he kind of reveals what she said earlier. So he's I'm Batman.
He's like, yeah, I don't want to tell you I'm him, but yeah. I like this because there's like, to get there, he's quickly getting dressed and getting geared up, and Alfred saved him and all that stuff. But all the bridges are closed. So all these officers are either incapacitated on the island or they can't get to the island. So like the inmates are running the asylum literally, and the one cop is like, send them all in. He's like, we can't send them in. There's nobody left to send in. And then, and the Batmobile flies into the scene.
Well, remember when he was training, one of the things Ducard, Ra's al Ghul said was, you took on 6 men, I'm going to train you how to take on 6,000. And now it's literally, Batman has to take on all of the League of Shadows in Gotham.
And like these criminals who are let free.
Yeah, exactly, all the escaped criminals. So Ra's al Ghul has escaped on this monorail with the ME, which he plans on releasing. So as soon as you get it to briefly, Bruce Wayne's dad mentioned that he'd build Wayne Tower, which is the center of the Gotham City, and they got the subway monorail trains going in, and Ra's al Ghul's plan is once you blow that up, everything will fucking it'll just eat, the whole city will just eat itself alive, and he wants to start from new. And they make references to we were behind fucking the British what is it, November to Remember, whatever, right? He mentions briefly think of all the things throughout the ages. You think that was coincidence? No, it was us doing this for ages of doing all these things, and this is how society needs to restart. They're basically, the League of Shadows are basically Antifa. And they're we got to burn it down to build it up.
It's some weird thing. But so Raz's plan is to crash this into or do something with the machine. But obviously Batman shows up to stop him.
So it's Batman and Ra's al Ghul. They're fighting on the speeding monorail, and this thing's going at quite the speed.
And he's like, when I told you to learn theatrics and the smoke and illusions, I didn't mean take it seriously. He gets a great dig at Batman. I would have killed him for that joke. I was like, that was a good one, but I'm gonna have to kill you now.
Meanwhile, Jim Gordon, is driving the Tumbler, the Batmobile, as his plan is to kind of blow up part of the rail to stop the monorail from smashing into
so Bruce's plan is to just cause, Gordon's gonna make that go off the rails, so just cause another explosion, but Batman's ready to sacrifice himself.
Yes. So there's this big chase scene as Ra's and Batman are fighting, and then the Gordon succeeds. He blows up part of the monorail. The monorail's going to go flying, and Ra's al Ghul is kind of hanging on.
He's like, you can't stop this train, Bruce. And he's like, you gotta be aware of your surroundings, because I ain't trying to stop the train. And then Ra's looks and he's like, oh, fuck.
Yeah. And Batman says, I'm not going to kill you, but I'm not going to save you either.
Peace.
And he pretty much flies off backwards, looks fabulous, flying out of the back of this monorail. I mean, he killed Ra's al Ghul.
Ra's just goes, closes his eyes and accepts fate.
He's like, this is on Jim's hands, this one. I didn't do anything. I didn't pull the trigger.
Poor Liam Neeson's getting fucked up here. He's deaded.
So Ra's al Ghul dies.
He's a real Ghul now. Or does he?
No. Or does he?
He died.
And Batman saves the day. We go to Wayne Enterprises, where Earl is holding another kind of business meeting committee, and Lucius Fox is already in there. The meeting's already started, and I was like, I fired you. And he goes, yeah, you did, but I got a new job. Yours. And so Earl is pissed and phones up Bruce and is like, what's going on? You don't have any power here. And he goes, well, actually, when you made the Wayne Enterprises public, I just bought majority of the shares.
Wow.
So I am the boss, and Fox is in charge. And then that's when Fox goes, didn't you get the memo?
So this guy's gone.
He's gone. He's out of here.
So Lucius has helped running the thing. It's a good moment, and it's like now the city's in like rehabilitation mode.
It feels like we're in a better place.
He's at the Wayne Manor. It's destroyed. The firefighters are going through it. I'm sure they didn't show this, but I'm sure Bruce and Alfred to the firefighters and the cleanup crew were like, yeah, just stay away from like all over here. Don't ever go over here.
The southeast corner.
So then, that's when Alfred and him are like, well, now that this is all taken, we could rebuild it brick for brick, but we could,
make it a little better.
Secret tunnels and all sorts of different shit.
And we see in the newspaper that the story is that drunk billionaire burns down his own place,
and he's cool with that.
And he's like, yeah, okay, whatever.
That's crazy.
Rachel tells Bruce that she's always loved him and she's proud of him as his father would be, but that doesn't stop her from going off with Harvey Dent very soon.
Aww.
And so they want to do improvements on Wayne Manor, and then the final scene, we see Batman actually putting out the proper bat symbol this time.
I like how he donated it.
Yeah.
Like he made it for them.
For the city.
He's so egotistical.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, you might want this to call me.
And so Jim Gordon, who I believe's had a bit of a promotion now at this point, shows up and he's like, yeah, we saved the day, but things are only going to get worse. Now we've added like armor and theatricality into this. Unfortunately, like the bad guys are gonna work on it.
Like every time you give a cop a semi-automatic, they get automatics. Every time we got bulletproof gear, they got guns that shoot through it. Like he's like, and there's a lot of people that are still escaped from like these cells that were open.
It's going to escalate.
Yeah.
So he says, and there's just been this armed robbery, and the guy left a calling card behind, and clearly has a thing for the theatrics, just like you, and flips the card over. And it's the Joker.
Oh. In a baggie.
He goes, I never said thank you. And Batman says,
you'll never have to.
And then he just flies away.
Flies away and just vanishes. And that's the end of Batman Begins. With a good little... Like, this is a MCU-style stinger here, isn't it? With the reveal of the Joker.
I think that's where the hype came for the next movie,
the final
for
scene.
Sure, because as soon as this got out, everyone's like, wait a second, they're doing this again, Batman and Joker? Like, definitely one of the best ending teases in a movie. I was just talking to someone the other day, they were watching the MCU one, I think it's Iron Man 2, the credits roll, and then it's Thor's hammer.
Okay,
that's like one of the best little teases. It's like the little thing that does it for you, and it lets your mind do the thinking, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that's what here does. Because at the time, did they know they were going to make that movie? Maybe.
Yeah.
Right? So they're just like, fuck it, let's just add this. When you think of Batman, you think of Joker. So let's add this in there at the end. It's like, as soon as they flip the card, your brain goes like, what is that going to be?
I feel it's the same in horror, and it's certainly the same in superhero films. You always need to leave something.
Yeah.
Just in case. Because even Dark Knight Rises, which they were very adamant, this is it, we're ending it. But even then, they leave little things at the end where they go, well, you could always come back with these guys if you want to.
I love this. Even now, like, we know where the movie goes and what the next movie is, and it's amazing. But even this little thing, it's like, oh, fuck, like, that's never mentioned in that movie either.
And I think what I always love about, I think why sequels to superhero films, especially, are usually pretty good. Like, you think Spider-Man 2 is very highly regarded, Dark Knight, obviously. I think it's because, right, we've got all the exposition out the way now. We can just dive right in. And it's exactly what they do with the next film.
Like Empire Strikes Back.
It's like, bang, Joker's there right away, and it's Batman v Joker. You don't need all this exposition of how to get there. And I love the exposition in this film. Yeah. But I think it always helps if you've got a strong first film. Like the second one in kind of these genres usually do pretty well.
Even Spider-Man, the recent one, with the second one technically is, what, Mysterio with Jake Gyllenhaal? Yeah. He finally got his superhero movie there.
He did.
Which is amazing, I thought, actually. So, leading into the second movie with this ending is so sweet. And it looks just like the comic book. Like, Gary Oldman is fucking amazing. I think he's one of the greatest actors. Just like,
I think so.
I read trivia on this that they were like, if we could get him, like, fuck. Like, there was a few other people. They wanted Anthony Hopkins as Alfred. They wanted different things for different people. But when they got him, they were like, fuck yeah. Like, this is, like, look at the cast. They're like, fuck yeah, Gary Oldman. he didn't know his lines yet. So he's on the plane, and that's when he starts reading the fucking lines, because he's like, I just got signed to do this and didn't get time. And I'm like, dude, you understood the assignment. You are I know J. Jonah Jameson's doing double duty now as the new Gordon.
Oh, okay. Right.
Whiplash dude.
Yes.
I think he's amazing. I think
J.K. Simmons.
I fucking love J.K.
incredible.
Simmons. However, Gary Oldman is going to be, for me,
I mean,
Gordon.
I agree. I think Gary Oldman's one of the greatest actors alive.
Yeah.
I think he's incredible and finally does a bit of justice to this character.
Yeah.
'Cause Jim Gordon is such a significant recurring character in the comics.
Yeah.
I feel in the cartoons, but in the films, we've done all these films recently.
He's
and
a joke.
Barely remember.
He's a joke. He gets like the poison ivy, gets him under his powers.
Like
It's
he's not an interesting character at all. And
it's
I
definitely
think,
in the next one actually that I like him the most, because
he's
when he's like, got you, son of a bitch, or something.
They flesh out every character and do it more so kind of in the next one. You have Fox with like his like issues with morality about what Bruce is doing,
right?
And I think the supporting cast makes this whole series so much stronger. Alfred, I think the previous Alfred was great.
Yeah.
Like that's how I've always pictured Alfred to be,
For sure.
But they succeed with the emotional moments between Alfred and Bruce, which I think they've done pretty well in all the films. But just seeing the kind of story of Bruce growing up with Alfred looking after him and that, it makes it so much more touching. Gordon just seems like he seems so normal, which is important in this. He does seem like the only decent cop there, and you know he's a family man, which obviously we get into more in the later films. I think this film is fucking great.
Yeah, I think this is the one I've seen the least amount of times of the three, and I haven't watched this easily in like 10 years, or maybe in setup for Dark Knight Rises, which probably is older than 10 years as well, or almost that way. So I haven't watched it in a long time, so it still felt like I knew everything, what was happening, and I remembered, but I was like, oh, like I'm down to rewatch this. And I know a lot of you guys, our listeners, were like, oh, I can't wait till they get, like, the other ones were fun. Comic booky, really stupid and shit that it's fun to talk about, but the real meat is like in this trilogy is like fantastic. And to start it off like that, you could say it was like this sleeper hit that people were tired of this genre, but then all of a sudden Batman is what killed it, but then Batman's what brought it back.
It changed cinema a lot.
Yeah, I mean, so did Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
So then this had to come in to like pick up the pieces almost 10 years later, and they knock it out the park. And Christopher Nolan, like with the way he shoots things and the way he puts everything together, it made so much sense. Like you mentioned, like the Nolan as a description of something, like, yeah, they're doing the Nolan thing where you make it realistic, dark, like that's how it'll be. And it's like, it's such a good thing. But then on top of that, he hires like amazing writers that clearly like did tie-ins with the comics and the names of the characters that are like been in comics since like the 70s and stuff, like the gangs and little things here and there sprinkled in,
like the court case of Victor Zsasz earlier and that kind of thing.
And there's probably more Easter eggs that we're like glancing over, but like then to on top of that, like then hire like actual fucking good actors, like all of the people in this, the main characters that we've mentioned are like killer performances.
Well, I mean, the previous ones had good actors, but they're actually allowed to act here, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you look at the others, you've had Jack Nicholson, Tommy Lee Jones, Jim Carrey, Uma Thurman. Like, they're not, like, short on amazing talents. Just, I think one of the big things is at no point during the making of this film, I think David S. Goyer and Christopher Nolan went, how would a kid enjoy this?
True.
And that's important because I don't think adults know I don't think adults know what kids like. Full stop.
Yeah.
And therefore I think so much stuff, I think where WWE's been wrong for years is they think kids like this stupid shit.
Right.
Whereas realistically, I was a kid when they were aiming the product at an adult audience, and that's when I thought it was the coolest fucking shit.
Yeah.
And that's here. Like, sure, I think when you're 7, like Batman and Robin, it's great.
The best.
But it's kind of, I say, by the time you hit maybe 12, you're already going, oh, this is kind of kiddie and cheesy and shit.
Yeah.
Whereas there's no intention at all. Like, it's all about essentially the mafia in this film. It's about the mob. is the
That's what's
kind
sick.
of the main thing.
And that's what's sick.
And there's no way you're making a mob film for kids. I would think Batman's just speeding away.
Oh,
on
it looks like
on the
Batman's
Gardener
Lambo,
right
actually.
now.
Yeah, it's a red one though. It's interesting because I remember being always into comic books and stuff, and my older cousin would like not be. He's always into just like football and like gangster Scarface and like all that shit. And it's interesting because when The Dark Knight came out, he's like, "Hey, all my buddies keep telling me about this Batman, The Dark Knight," and I'm like, "Oh, it's fucking," and like I'm a kid. I'm like, "Oh, it's amazing, it's great." So we found like a pirated version of it online. I've already watched it in theaters, but like, I'll rewatch it with you. And like this guy is my older cousin. He always used to be like, comic books and superheroes and shit. And then here he is like, "Hey, I heard this is really good." So we put it on, and then like my old Portuguese uncles are like walking by the living room. They're like, "What are you guys watching?" We're like, "Batman." And they're like, "Batman, whatever." But then they come into the room and it's like, "Wait a second, what's going on here?" These like mafia guys with guns. And then like most of the family was like, "This is good. This is good." I'm like, "Yeah, it's sick."
That's exactly with my brother as well. My brother doesn't like the superhero genre particularly, but he loves these films because they're just great films.
They're good movies,
I wouldn't even say these are good superhero films. These are just good films.
Yeah.
And I'd say the only other one where, like when Infinity War and Endgame was coming out, I feel like my brother might have felt like, I'm kind of missing on the hype a bit now, but I've got to watch 22 films to be able to watch this. No, it's gone. That boat sailed. But I remember saying, okay, you like the Dark Knight trilogy, watch Logan. It doesn't matter that you haven't watched. And that's, I think, the only other
for sure
superhero film that I'd say you can watch standalone. Sure, there's been, 9 X-Men films probably before then.
Yeah.
You don't need to watch it.
No.
All you need to know is Patrick Stewart is Professor X and he's kind of ill. And Wolverine is Hugh Jackman and he's kind of ill as well.
Everyone's dying.
Watch the film. That's
Everyone's
it. It's
dying.
a fucking great film.
But the same with this one. You could just be like, "Hey, this is the one where it's Batman's origin story," and they go, "Oh, this is how Batman's made. Cool. It's
great.
It's a good story and it's interesting." Everyone involved in this movie just like knocked it out the park. And we mentioned it like didn't do like it. Obviously, it made a lot of money, but it didn't like blow up as much as like you kind of figured it would. But then, like, as soon as the word got around that they were making this one with the Joker, it was all in the news. Like, when Heath Ledger got hired, there was such backlash. And, like, how could you end that with this Joker and promoting that it's going to be him? Like, it's so ridiculous. And then, of course, when he passes, like, the hype for The Dark Knight just got, like, superstarred. Like, just bigger than, like, it went back to what Batman used to be.
It's a pet peeve is, like, casting criticisms.
Yeah.
Like,
still
just
do it.
wait. Oh, always. Robert Pattinson being, like, cast. And people are like, what? Guy from Twilight? It's like, yeah, he's made a lot of movies since then. And, you know, his job is to pretend he's someone else. Like, can we trust that he can do his job, maybe?
And it's definitely interesting. For this one, though, like, again, I was a little young and I didn't quite know who Christian Bale is. But then when I watch it, I'm like, whoever this guy is amazing. Because he took this and was like, I'm going to be this Batman. I'm not going to be this comic book, this toy from the past movies. I'm going to be, like, I guess he was a big fan. He read these graphic novels. He got into it.
I mean, we're going to go into our scores
now. Bat scores.
But I'm going to say off the bat. Yeah. See what I did there?
Yeah.
He's the actor that is the best at being both Bruce and Batman.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
for sure.
I believe him as a playboy. I believe he can be charming when he wants to.
Yeah.
I believe he's very intelligent and can be this sort of detective and, like, mastermind behind these gadgets and stuff. I also believe he'll beat the fuck out of you if he needs to. And I feel Christian Bale, the person, you look at him and you go, you've got a dark past. There's something troubling you, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas George Clooney, I love Clooney, but I don't get that he'll beat me up.
Not at all.
I don't get that. He broke up with Stacy Keibler. Like, that's how bad I think it probably gets for him. And then he landed on his feet pretty well. Yeah, so shall we go into our scores?
Yes, let's go into our bat scores.
I'm just going to give a little rundown of our scores so far. So after I'm not going to do the breakdowns, but after our combined scores, Batman got a 3.5 stars from us. Out of 5. Batman Returns got a 3.34 stars, so probably round up 3.5 as well.
Okay.
Mask of Phantasm is currently leading with 4 stars.
Okay.
Good film.
Yeah.
Batman Forever, 3 stars, middle of the road. Just a bit below the Tim Burton ones.
It's definitely generous.
Generous. Well, then we go to Batman and Robin, which I think is also maybe a bit generous, but I think maybe we just really enjoyed how bad it was.
I smoked a lot before watching it.
2.5.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Which I think a lot of people would disagree with us. I mean, yeah, we could say it's as low as a 1, but come on.
So the first on the list
is Bruce Wayne.
Bruce Wayne. Yeah, I'm being super generous here because clearly I was generous on the other ones.
Yeah.
You said in this movie there wasn't enough of like the Playboy thing, and it gave you a little bit because I definitely love him showing up with 2 girls in the same Lamborghini passenger seat and then jumping in the fountain. But it also showed a Bruce that we have totally never seen because it's him like vulnerable. It's him with the gun. It's a whole character that we haven't seen at all. So for me, like it's almost like they created this that they gloss over in every other form of Batman. So I'm like, that is definitely a part of the movie that you wouldn't go into this movie thinking was like, oh, that was so sick. How Bruce is there, he's going to shoot this guy. It's like dramatic, and it's not the Playboy Bruce, but it's still like this like Bruce. And I thought, I just really love Christian Bale. I gave this a 9 out of Bruce. I didn't give it a 10 because there needed to be one more like Playboy thing. But
for exactly the same reasons, I went with an 8.
Yeah.
I love the scene in the fountain at the hotel, but yeah, one more. I think something early on would have been useful to kind of show him a bit more like lighthearted, and I think he could have been even more of a dick with Earl. To kind of show off a bit.
Right.
But I love, as you said, that we get this whole backstory inside of him we don't normally see. I went with 8.
Yeah, like he's really good in stuff we didn't think Bruce would be, and the training as well. That's not Batman yet; he's Bruce. So it's like it's pretty entertaining.
Well, let's go to Batman.
Yeah, I am usually on the same page. I know I've given different ones for different things, but I'm giving him a 9 as well for Batman because he's totally believable as Batman. Whether I think anyone who does the "I'm Batman, where are the other drugs going" stuff, you're gonna like kind of laugh at that anyways. But it's the first time that Batman changed his fucking voice.
It makes sense.
So like, yeah, it totally makes sense. So you can't even knock it because like, if you put on a costume of Batman, I would say, Davie, why are you wearing a costume of Batman?
Okay, if we legit had today, someone who could afford all these outfits and like crazy weapons and stuff, I'm looking right at Elon Musk, right? Like, wouldn't you say that's kind of the sort of equivalent?
Yeah,
I would think. Like, you're a billionaire and you have plans to like colonize Mars and all this shit. Like and I believe you could do it if you wanted to. So don't sound like Elon Musk when you're dressed as a superhero. So the voice is funny and definitely gets a bit more ridiculous in the later films. But yeah, of course. Why wouldn't you disguise your voice?
I like Batman. It totally is a 180 from, and it's good because all these movies in the past like few months, it's fresh in our heads from doing these reviews. It totally doesn't make Batman a joke anymore. The last time we saw Batman was Batnips.
Yeah.
And now he looks like he would kill me. I'm scared of this guy. When he's upside down, he's like, I'm here.
He said like he wanted to play Batman as this monster.
Yeah, he
like,
is.
Full of rage.
And the scene where he's the Scarecrow sees him and he's terrifying, like, yeah, that's exactly
and
it.
Apparently he hated the suit so much wearing it that it always put him in a foul mood, which like they loved for him being Batman because he's just like so angry.
And apparently doing the voice fucks his voice up.
Oh yeah, it like fucks mine just doing it on the pod.
Yeah, 9 and 9 for Bruce and Bats for me.
I went 9 as well.
Yeah.
As we said, I believe this guy is scary. I think he'd fuck you up.
Yeah.
Main villain, I believe we're going with Ra's al Ghul.
Right. Yeah. So like he's a big chunk of the beginning and a big chunk of the end, but he's not kind of in the movie fully there. Here I'm giving him a 7, not because I like don't think he's perfect, because I do love Liam Neeson. I think his acting is there, but he is like missing from a chunk of it. And I would say you tell like 10 people, hey, I'm watching the Batman. They're like, oh, what villain is that one? Because he's not like super memorable. It's because all he got is the goatee, and they don't do too much of his like, I want to say spiritual magic shit that he does in like the cartoons and comics. but like 7 is because like the character that he does still see, like the training and the fighting is like still epic. I lowered, like it's a 7 because he's not as exciting as like the Joker or whatever, right? So I still think he's awesome, and that's why I'm still kind of up there.
I'm similar page as you, but a bit lower. I went a 6.
Yeah, it's who's the kid? C level.
I think it's the right character for this story, and I love seeing him. I love the whole training thing, introducing the League of Shadows. I think he looks like the counterpart. He looks like he does in the comics and the cartoon and stuff. But even now when people have seen this film, you say, "Oh yeah, Ra's al Ghul." People are gonna who?
Yeah.
And if you again Halloween parties, you see people dressed as the Riddler. You see so many people dressed as any iteration of the Joker, Catwoman, even Penguin. No one goes dressed as Ra's al Ghul.
They fucking should.
It's not iconic enough.
No, it's not.
But I think for the purpose of this story, I think it works.
We never mentioned the name 6. Ra's al Ghul, actually. The name in, like, I think Arabic or something means head of the demon.
Okay.
Like, translations something. So, like, that's smart, like, because he's the head. Ghul. Yeah.
I also feel, going back to the Bond analogy, he's kind of Alec Trevelyan in GoldenEye.
Yeah.
You know,
he's there in the beginning.
He's at the beginning. Okay, he doesn't die here, but he's sort of left. You don't know what's happened to him.
Yeah.
And you kind of think that's it. And then is the actual big bad later on.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
I get those vibes. Secondary villains. So let's just say like Scarecrow and Falcone here. Like,
yeah, I give it a 7 as well. Because they kind of fill in the gaps. Like, these guys are who Bats is tying up with for like the chunks of the movie as well. And it's like, finally seeing the Scarecrow done like this is so fucking sick. Like, it's so awesome. But I'd still say Scarecrow's a little bit of a, like, side thing. That's why they booked it properly. Like, they booked this movie with multiple villains, but they didn't hit you over the head with it like the past few shitty, like, pairings that don't make sense. Like, everything kind of falls into place. So I'm not giving it a 7 because I think it's shit. I'm giving it a 7 because Cillian Murphy's great and the character's great. It still is, like, nothing that's, like, that epic, like...
I feel if there was an extended cut of this film, it would really help to see him doing the experiments on the inmates and just show even more of what a psychopath this guy is.
Yeah.
Because all we really see is a gas mask. And it's cool, like the hallucinations are cool, but I feel there's more we can get out of this. And he's such a great actor and so scary. But again, he doesn't reach that kind of iconic level of supervillain that you get in some of the less good films.
He's still sick. He's still
good. I went for a 5.
Yeah.
Again, I think perfect choice for this story. I wouldn't necessarily say change anything about it, but just if we're looking at superhero films as a whole, I can't say like he's top of the list.
Yeah.
All right. So sorry, you went 7 and 7 for the villains, right?
Yes.
Alfred.
All right. I love the old Alfred, but after rewatching Mr. Cockney slang, what's his name?
Michael Caine.
Sir Michael Caine. Like, he's fucking amazing.
Oh, yeah.
I gave him a 10.
Ooh.
I gave him a full 10 here. Simply because the push-up line definitely put it over. I was like, you had to get your dig in. You had to get him back. But he's the guy who, like, sets Bruce straight all the time. He saved him. It was definitely the that push-up line that made me laugh the most from him, but it was the... when Bruce is like, as a kid, like, oh, it was my fault. I ran out. He tells him the truth. Like, we left early because of me. I was scared, and because of that, we got shot. And he's like, no, it fucking wasn't. It wasn't.
Never.
Yeah, it never. So I was like, dude, you're fucking great. You're such a good actor. And Christopher Nolan was like, oh, you're just so good. I got to put you in Inception for no reason, but you're in it.
All his films.
Yeah, all his films. Yeah. I'm being generous. I just really love him. I
went a 9 for the same reasons. I just don't really give a 10.
Yeah.
He's great. It would have been so jarring with Michael Caine to put on like a posh accent, but if you go in like what I expect from the comics and things, but no, he's perfect. Like you believe he is this father figure with Bruce. Like you completely buy that relationship.
He's so good. Yeah.
He's great. And we'll go to the Batmobile.
The Batmobile,
the Tumbler.
Yeah. I guess this could be a controversial, but I'm giving it a 10 as well. Simply because I think as a kid, I loved having the toys of all the other old school Batmobiles, but this is the most realistic version. If this guy was gonna fucking dress as this guy as a bat and drive around the city in a fucking car, it's not gonna be a car. It's gonna be this. It's gonna be this tank that can flip and crush cars and drive all over the place, stealth mode, all this like army shit. So yeah, it looks sick. I don't know how kids don't have more toys. Like we should have one of these in the set.
This is the highest score I've given. I think I went a 9.5.
Yeah.
For the same reasons I don't really give a 10. But yeah, it's practical.
Yeah.
And it looks cool. Like it feels like something Batman would drive. Like the others look flashy but are essentially sports cars. Like this is gonna get the job done. Like I can believe this jumping over gaps in bridges and or even if it crashes, like being okay because it's so armored.
Yeah.
I'm like you. I've seen this in person as well. It's really cool.
It's like you almost hated it at first, like when they first showed pictures of this. You're like, that's the Batmobile. You're like, but then you're like, no, well, wait a second. Like, this is what it would do because the old ones, Michael Keaton pushes a button, it's got like armor on it, and it's like, well, no, it looks like shit.
Again, it's one of those things. Wait till the film comes out before judging.
Yeah, and then you do, and you're like, oh shit.
Very intrigued by these early designs of the Riddler because I'm like, what the fuck? I'm sure it will make sense once we see the film.
For sure.
I'm not going to start boycotting the film because he doesn't look like the Riddler does in the comic.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm sure it will make sense and they're trying to create something else iconic, you know?
For sure.
Let's go for the suit/gadgets.
Well, as I mentioned, there's no bat nips, so that's why you can't give it a 10. I gave it a 9.
Okay.
Because the suit, I thought, was like, when it first came out, I was like, dude, that's what fucking Batman is. He's fucking scary. Don't make them look like George Clooney in a fucking silver ice suit, whatever the fuck that was.
You don't want to be stopped to have a photo with this guy.
Yeah.
You know?
Like,
whereas it's like, oh, it's Times Square. Like,
so
it's
like,
Batman.
yeah, and like the suits just get better in these movies, the next few movies, and like I fucking love that. And then the gadgets, it's a bat boot thing that turns a
I'd say the cape as well.
Oh yeah,
you know, like
cape. The cape is like that magnetic thing. It actually explains everything.
Yeah.
Because in the old movies, he just all of a sudden he flies. In the Batman Returns, he walks around with the rubbery cape the whole movie, and then one scene, all of a sudden, it's got like retractable things, and it's like, no, that doesn't look real at all. We criticized it. Here, everything makes sense, and the fact that he's got this like app thing in his boot that he pushes and it calls bats. I'm like, dude, that's fucking badass. So yeah,
very Ant-Man-esque. Isn't
it's
it?
like I'm calling all the bats.
Yeah.
And they're coming. So 9, yeah, for sure.
I went an 8. I think it looks great, and again, I love the practicality of it. I love that they explain it, that this is like a military, like cave diving suit.
And
you go, like I believe it. It looks bulletproof.
Oh, and the fact they explain how they make it, like they're ordering parts from like companies, and I
love that, and I think. If the gadget is just like the calling the bats thing and the cape, I think they're really, really pretty cool and not campy. It's the practicality I love so much about this film, and then just overall enjoyment of the film.
Yeah, I give this an 8. It holds up. I mentioned what I like about it is the acting and the characters, like stuff you did not see in any of the former movies. You could say I don't want to say this is the boring Batman movie because it really isn't. There's so much stuff going on, but compared to some of the other stuff, I understand that saying.
I can see people maybe who aren't as patient being like, "Let's go! Where's Batman? Where's Riddler? Where's Joker? Let's go!" And like. I personally like more. I like character development and exposition in my superhero films. I don't just need action all the time.
Exactly.
Like, that's not for me. But some people need that, and that's fine as well. So I can see why people would think that. But
I gave it an 8. I still love this movie.
I gave it a 9. I think it's really a really, really strong film and just restores all faith in this universe that was maybe lost previously.
100%, because you're now, especially leaving you on that cliffhanger with the Joker card, like you're like, holy shit, they just knocked this out the park. Who knows what they'll do with the Joker, because they did such a good job on this. So yeah, I have not watched this in a long time, and it definitely was like oh man, this movie's great. So
doing some
quick maths.
Bat math. Baths. No, that doesn't work. I got an overall score once doing the average of 7.94. 9.4. You had an overall score of 8.625. We then add them together and divide by 2, which gives a combined score of 8.3. Divide that by 2 for a star rating. It gives us a 4.15. We'll round that up to a 4.25. So 4.25 star. Batman Begins is top of the Bat leaderboard.
Wow, it's leading the charge.
It's
the best Bat movie thus far.
And these are official
Bat scores.
And if you disagree, you're wrong.
Yeah, because we did the maths and everything. And what we say is the gospel here. So clearly we like this movie. It was a lot of fun to go back and dissect it and everything, because whatever they did, like reinvigorated this like genre and this creating. You don't need to just go make toy commercials. You can do stuff with actual characters and feelings and emotions and messages. The whole message of the whole trilogy is like, rise. If you get knocked down, don't give up. And injustice. And Bruce doesn't want to kill people. Even if this guy is a murderer or something, you got to try him and you got to put him in jail. Like there's like messages and good stuff deep within it. And it's a really good movie. Honestly, I enjoyed watching it. Everything is on point.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess the next time we talk about Batman will be the main event, the 5-star classic. Will it be The Dark Knight?
The Dark Knight.
Yeah, I can't wait. Well, I also forgot that there might be some feedback.
We do. Yes.
Do you want to start?
Sure. We put up feedback on forum.postwrestling.com and the Patreon to see what you think of this film. And we start off with Robbie, who says, as someone who grew up reading a lot of Batman, but mainly for the Bat fam, Robin, Nightwing is a fictional character of mine, I didn't expect to enjoy an origin story all that much. Since Bruce is a character I generally don't enjoy, but this is a fantastic film. Not only do I find it is the best film of the Nolan-verse, but it is clearly to me the best Bat film of all time.
Wow.
The origin is done to perfection and could have easily been seen as a straight lift from year one. The villain choices I was thrilled with. I even loved the swerve of the decoy Ra's al Ghul looking just like the comic counterpart to really convince someone like me that it was the real deal. This is peak Batman storytelling to me, and if we were going off this film alone, I'd say he is the best portrayal of Batman. But alas, they kept going. Great film nonetheless. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
Thank you. We go to David M, a.k.a. not Josh Groban. He writes in, I like this movie a lot, but I feel like the back half kind of collapses. Liam Neeson is so great in the movie, but his character doesn't come across as menacing as it needed to be. And his whole plot seemed to bring down Gotham for good reasons is way too convoluted. They definitely course-corrected with Dark Knight, which delivers the whole way through, but it's a shame because otherwise a good movie, and Neeson is so great. So clearly he's like, the guy's plan was to hit them with the vapes.
The villain's flat plans are never particularly good.
True.
We go to Eric Marcotte, who says, in my opinion, Batman Begins is the best Batman movie and a top 5 film in the superhero genre. Batman Begins showcased a level of storytelling and character development that was previously unheard of in the genre, especially when compared to the other origin stories, as well as the prior Batman films. All of the leads give great performances, and each central character was so layered compared to their prior incarnations. Just think about Commissioner Gordon's role in the originals. I did have some issues with the I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you either cop-out ending, but that's a wider issue throughout the Dark Knight trilogy that I'll complain about more down the road.
He was allowed to kill him. I give him the blessing. He should have killed him. He did. He didn't kill him.
Well, I think it's more that, as you said, he says, all right, I don't kill people, but yeah, well, you left a guy in a train that's hurtling towards a wall.
This guy deserves
He's definitely going to die. He made the choice for this guy to die.
He already saved you once, so therefore he doesn't owe you anything.
Fair enough.
Everybody gets one.
Eric goes, I could go on and on about how great this movie is, but I'll cut myself off. Batman Begins is the height of the Dark Knight trilogy, and in my mind, the best DC Comics film thus far. 9.5 out of 10.
Damn. And Eric is, he's a tough cookie to crack. He doesn't give out those ratings.
No.
He tells it like it is. We go to Megan, who writes in, Batman Begins shed a lot of the character's campy, cartoonish baggage in past films and brought this down to earth. The influences of Batman Year One, The Long Halloween, are running rampant throughout. Ra's al Ghul and Scarecrow play off the character in distinct ways, and they were great picks for villains, and neither got shortchanged. The movie was a turning point for comic book films to be taken seriously. It set the blueprint for what came after for its excellent focus on character. Still not fond of Bale's Batman voice in retrospect.
He should do the opposite instead. And just be like, alright, I'm Batman! Batman!
British Batman?
We go to Emmanuel Churison, who says, are you ready for it?
Yeah.
First time, long time!
Whoa, first time.
First time, long time.
I love this movie and how good they make the origin story. I like the way Bruce Wayne is not comfortable in becoming a rich Helm? I don't know that word, but Helm? You can see how much he at least wants to tell Rachel when they meet again for the first time. It really lays the groundwork for the movies to come. Good bad guys, great supporting actors, and always fun to see Rutger Hauer. A solid 8 out of 10 film.
I see Helm. I don't know Helm. Helm didn't show up, but maybe he meant something else. Like a heel? Maybe he's a heel.
Maybe.
Maybe like a heel.
Oh, the helm. Putting on the helm, I guess.
Right, yeah.
As in, like, becoming Batman.
Becoming Batman?
Yes.
And Roger Hauer? Who's Roger?
Rutger Hauer. He's a Dutch actor who...
Blade Runner.
Oh, he's the guy in Hobo with a shotgun. He's the Hobo.
Nice. Well, he's also in Blade Runner, which apparently Nolan showed everyone who was going to help make this movie before.
Yeah.
He said, everybody come over at this theater he rented, and then they put Blade Runner, and then after said, we're going to make a movie like this, but Batman.
He's Earl in this.
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha, yeah.
But yeah, I love that. It's like, you see this film, that's going to be Batman. It's great.
So that's what you thought. Apparently people like this movie.
Yes.
I knew it.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty
good film.
It's pretty good. So like we mentioned, the next one we do in this series will be The Dark Knight.
Ooh, looking forward to it.
So follow our socials and all that stuff, because we'll probably put it out in June sometime. Therefore, when we put up the feedback threads, write in and give us your thoughts on The Dark Knight. Is it lit? Is it overrated? Does it suck? Or is it the best superhero movie of all time?
Of all time.
You gotta wait till we put out a review of
I mean,
this.
I'm pretty sure it's listed. I think it's in top 10 on IMDb of just greatest
Movies.
films
Yeah.
all time, full stop.
Yeah. It's high up there. A lot of people love this movie.
Yeah.
Definitely one of my favorite movies. I mean, as I'm recording this, we have the Joker in our living room. Heath Ledger.
It's number 3 on IMDb. Number 2 is another film we've talked about, The Godfather. And number 1, Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, Dark Knight's way better than Shawshank. Sorry, 100%.
I haven't watched it.
Morgan Freeman's in both of them.
He is, yeah. He is.
Thank you guys so much for listening. Like I mentioned, follow the socials at upNXT Podcast for all this stuff. And if you like listening to us talk about movies, well, we talk about all these other movies on our Patreon, patreon.com/upNXT. $5 a month for North American tier gets you access to all the podcasts we put out in the month and access to all the past shows, which, yes, it also includes the 60s Batman movie review. It's back there in the catalog.
It is in the archives.
We do so many. We've done Gremlins, Terminator, like so many crazy movies, all the up yours. What do we have coming out?
Well, I think it's a good time to promote that next week we'll be giving you guys another free movie review. As we're going to be talking about Army of the Dead, Zack Snyder's latest zombie flick starring Batista. It's available to watch on Netflix, so this is just giving you some warning to watch it ahead of time. We'd love to hear all your feedback for this film. But if you want more zombies, we've just released our Dawn of the Dead 2004 Snyder review on the Patreon, so you can go ahead and listen to that before checking out Army.
Yes, check out all the stuff. We've been doing a lot of free shows. The Best Match Ever, Hannah Kimura with WH Park. That is on this feed. Of course, BD Elite. Every Wednesday night we put that up after recording. And Up Next and Shot in the Dark, all the free shows. But if you love us and you're not annoyed of us and want to hear more, the Patreon is where you can access all the shows, because we're quietly working on the June schedule, and it looks fucking packed. So can't wait to share that with you guys. And we appreciate you listening. And I myself, Braden Herrington. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram at @TheBrady.
And you can find me at Davie Portman.
Take care. Goodbye. Be safe. And sometimes when you fall, it's because we gotta learn how to get back up. But most importantly,
Where are the other drugs going?
Ahoy!